The narrative kicks off by letting us know it was crazy windy on the day our MC was born. Even as a kid, young Simon used to hang out with this glowing little bird, a creature his mom totally believed was a blessing from the wind spirit. While playing near their wooden house, the kid casually asks the spirit to hook him up with a cool breeze. Meanwhile, out in the yard, a guy and a woman were going super hard at their sword training. Noticing the unusual gust of wind, the warrior stops what he's doing and asks if the kid pulled that off, pointing out that having a knack for spirit magic is beyond rare. Like he'd only seen it at the royal court. Hearing that, the mom looks at her kid, bursting with absolute pride. Super hyped, the guy adds that the kid's dad is going to be over the moon if he grows up to be a royal palace mage. As time goes by, our boy crashes into a reality that's way harsher and darker than anyone saw coming. The path he was basically forced to walk left behind a wild trail of destruction and totally defeated folks. A brutal burden was dumped on his life, acting like a magnet for unhinged enemies that he could barely put up with. Only after carrying all this absurd weight. Standing frozen in the middle of a scene full of losses, he drops his head and wonders if he finally got a clue. His big takeaway: he needs to permanently cancel the guy who, totally unprovoked, put a bounty on his head. With his eyes practically glowing with resilience, he figures out this is the one and only way to break out of this cursed loop. The scene hard cuts to a wild storm where a dam just bursts, sweeping away a totally panicked guy screaming for a lifeline in the water. Magic is a pretty standard gig in this world, which is obvious since two hooded figures are cooking up spells in the pouring rain. It basically works by borrowing power through mana, but things are getting spicy, and a local is practically begging the master mage to hurry up before the flood wrecks everything. Magic circles instantly pop up in the air. A massive purple barrier drops down to hold back the water, flexing exactly why these guys get to call themselves mages. But then, the caster just drops his arms and announces his shift is over, completely ignoring the villager freaking out about the people still underwater. Looking super annoyed, the mage claps back that the original deal was just to patch the dam and nothing else. Totally triggered, the local asks what else they were supposed to do, since the thing crumbled before the mages even showed up. Rubbing his fingers together in that universal "show me the money" gesture, the hooded guy makes it clear they charge by the spell, demanding extra cash if they want VIP rescue services. The village chief is just standing there, absolutely mind blown by the sheer lack of chill. While they're arguing, one poor dude is clinging to a piece of driftwood in the raging rapids to keep from going under. Sketchy pieces of debris are rushing down the river like a hazard course. Right when the guy is about to get wiped out by a massive log, the narrator drops some lore. There's a super exclusive, ultra rare squad among magic users. Out of nowhere, a massive gust of wind swoops in and blasts the danger away, leaving the locals picking their jaws up off the floor. Even the sellout mage takes a step back, totally shook to see a wind spirit just pop up. The giant gale completely takes over, tossing the raging water around like it's absolutely nothing. The villager, who was literally seconds away from sinking, is suddenly sitting high and dry, completely dizzy from the VIP transport. Huge green tornado locks down the flood damage, showing off what real spirit magic actually looks like. Chill footsteps echo through the rain, backing up a voice announcing he isn't taking new commissions right now. A mysterious hooded kid walks right past the mercenaries, dropping the mic by saying he'll handle this mess himself, since he's in the neighborhood. The greedy caster just watches the new guy boss up and take over the situation, completely speechless. Paying close attention, the village chief spots a tiny blue bird chilling on the kid's shoulder and can't even compute it. Seeing the kid casually put the storm in time out like it's Tuesday, the local barely believes who he's looking at. The story then jumps to a super chill night in the Kingdom of Terrace, in a little spot called Ratville. A squad of locals is marching down the streets with torches, bummed out that they couldn't find what they were looking for. A woman is having a total meltdown, being comforted by a guy who admits it's just another day of taking an L on the search. The team leader mutters, totally frustrated, having zero clue where their target could have dipped off to. Right then, a stranger pops up behind him, politely asking if there's a place to crash nearby. Turning to the kid, the local apologizes, spilling the tea that a tragedy hit the village and suggesting he find a spot in the next town over. Hooked by the heavy vibes, the traveler pushes to find out what went down. Adjusting his hood, he casually mentions he couldn't help but notice the whole squad looking super desperate for something. With the blue bird front and center on his shoulder, the kid hints that he might be exactly what the town needs. Dropping his cloak with max dramatic flair, he introduces himself with wild confidence, claiming to be the legendary Wind Mage. But the locals just trade weird looks, whispering the title like it's a foreign language. The group leader awkwardly thanks him for the thought, shooting down the offer because he figures the kid wouldn't be much help anyway. Totally cringing at getting rejected for free, the stranger facepalms and asks if they even know what a mage is. The villager gets defensive, saying they've heard rumors that mages are sketchy news, which makes the kid realize these people are living under a rock. To flex his resume, he charges up some energy and pops a bright light right in the palm of his hand. Sparks float up into the night sky, leaving everyone starry-eyed while he explains that mages pack power that regular folks can't even touch. He breaks it down, saying they're people who can toss house-sized rocks, reroute rivers, and pull people back from the absolute edge. Magic is the ultimate cheat code to pull off stuff human muscle could never do on its own. Among the mystic arts, spirit magic vibes directly with nature, and is only bossed around by a super rare handful of chosen ones who get it. Pointing at himself looking incredibly smug, he flexes that there isn't a single spot on the map a wine's spirit can't sneak into to snoop around. Offering his services again, he hits a wall of suspicion from the chief, who thinks it's super sus for someone that OP to help randoms for no reason. The MC gets hit with a massive reality check, totally offended that these guys seriously have never heard of his hype. Trying to clear his name, he starts dropping history's heavy hitters, bringing up the legendary mage who carried the whole kingdom back in the day. He also makes sure to shout out the saint adored by the heavens, famous for her epic plays. Another top-tier legend he drops is the terrifying guardian of the mages. And finally, he aggressively hypes up the guy who fixes everyone's problems, the one and only Wind Mage. Looking at them like a puppy waiting for a treat, he asks if anyone there has heard the buzz about the Bluebird mercenary, and the local stutters highs. Striking a totally extra pose, the kid fakes being humble, saying it's cringe to hype himself up, but drops his secret identity before the guy can even ask if he's really gonna help. Holding up his gloved hand, he reminds everyone he's got the mage title but hustles as a mercenary. Rubbing his fingers together in that classic pay-up motion, the kid warns that, for a totally reasonable fee of sincerity, he'll make the village's headache vanish. Out of options, the villagers huddle up in a corner, agreeing to pool every single coin they have to cover the emergency premium. While they shake on it, a sketchy hooded shadow watches the whole thing go down from a distance, completely silent. Later on, the night stays chill around a little wooden cabin the town let him use. Inside, our supposed hero locks his bird in a cage while letting out some seriously villainous giggles. Weighing a heavy bag of coins, he hypes up the easy bag he just secured, noting the locals were straight up desperate. The bedroom window slides open without a peep-up in the dead of night. Hopping outside with the cage in hand, the scammer sneaks off, laughing at how clueless country folks are, which made the hustle way too easy. Walking away into the shadows, he actually feels a tiny drop of guilt, but cynically decides the villagers shouldn't have been such easy marks. Before he can even get a head start, the faker gets frozen by a voice telling him to stay exactly where he is. Stepping out of the dark, Simon asks what the rush is, wondering if the guy seriously planned to ghost the village's request like that. Looking over his shoulder, the scammer spots the cloak and asks if this is the random kid who ran into the search party earlier. Acting all tough, he tells the kid to back off and take a hike, saying he'll let it slide this one time since he's in a good mood. The MC calmly claps back that he can't do that, demanding a full refund for the villagers since the guy was about to pull a runner. Pulling a magic item out of his pocket, the hustler asks if the kid has an ace up his sleeve or just thought he was an easy target. Not wanting to waste time, he warns he's in a rush and wants to wrap this up fast, sparking up a glowing mini circle in his hand. Screaming out his spell's name, aggressive purple energy starts spinning around him, shaping up like blades. Feeling himself way too much, he drops some free advice, saying the best move you can make is picking a fight with a mage. Winding up his attack, the faker loudly promises he'll be the last caster the kid ever squares up against. The purple blades launch violently at the target, but Simon literally just raises a hand and swats them away with wind magic like they're annoying bugs. Scanning the move, the MC realizes the guy actually knows real magic and is totally lost on why he's out here running cheap scams. Absolutely flabbergasted, the scammer backs up, demanding to know how his opponent just parried his attack like it was nothing. Right then, the dark-haired kid points out the guy used specific pheromones just to bait those glowing bugs from earlier. He realizes the whole light show was just cheap special effects to wow regular people, admitting it gives him massive secondhand embarrassment to be in the same line of work. Keeping his cool, the MC drops one more little fun fact into the mix. He points at the knocked-over cage on the dirt, pointing out that the little blue critter inside is basically screaming for SOS. With a super casual flick of the kid's wrists, top-tier spirit magic starts lighting up the dark woods. A massive green tornado takes over the whole zone, flexing the absolutely unfair power gap between the two of them. Super chill, Simon drops the bomb that the little pet in the cage isn't some random parrot like the scammer thought. The glowing critter starts sizing up and morphing, revealing itself as the literal boss, level essence of the wind. The tiny bird shifts into its actual majestic final form, officially clocking in as the spirit king, Elkeen. The scammer absolutely loses it when he realizes who he's looking at, figuring out he just tried to hustle the real, deal Wind Mage. The spirit totally roasts the faker, saying his cheap knockoff act perfectly matches his trashy vibe, leaving the guy completely shook that the bird is trash, talking him. Never losing his chill, the kid warns he's willing to look past the identity theft if the cash is handed over without a scene. Sweating bullets, the fake finally connects the dots on how the kid is dropping spells without chanting, remembering seeing him pop off on a battlefield once. He gets a flashback to a totally scary day where dozens of soldiers got clapped by one single, absolute unit of a caster. Recognizing the kid's power matches his insane hype, he also remembers that nobody actually lost their life in that whole brawl. Assuming the MC is just way too soft and refuses to actually end anyone, the faker starts getting his fake confidence back. Faking a surrender to buy some time, he agrees to hand the bag over nicely, figuring good guys are easy to play. He tosses the loot back acting like they're cool, but he's secretly plotting to throw hands if his magic backfires. Simon catches the bag out of the air and tells the guy to quit playing innocent folks, dropping a hint that he should get a real job. But out of nowhere, the slimy dude pulls a knife and rushes in, screaming that he's going to take the BU in close combat. Not even blinking at the ambush, the MC calls up a lesser wind spirit to wrap this up on fast forward. In one smooth move, he uses a heavy blast of air to swat the attacker away like a fly before the blade gets anywhere close. Taking the opening, Simon and his spirit cue up a move called Spiral to cancel the drama. A heavy-duty green tornado smacks the scammer dead on, launching him backward like a ragdoll. The crash is rough, making the guy yell out as he catches instant karma for trying to pull a sneak attack. Wrecked on the ground and looking rough, he hears the mage calmly let him know it'll be a good minute before he can cast anything again. Grabbing his busted arm, the faker gets a stone, cold warning that if he's ever caught running this hustle again, the payback will be way worse. Hit him with a super dark, scary look, the kid promises next time he'll aim right for a critical spot, just like he did with his arm. Shaking in his boots from the threat and the mage's heavy aura, the scammer lets out a peak, panic scream. Without a second thought, he turns tail and sprints into the creepy woods, absolutely terrified of what might happen to him. Watching the goofy retreat, the Spirit King yawns, pointing out the guy is running like his life is literally on the line. Elkeen judges Simon's play, calling him soft for just playing jump scare without actually finishing the job, but admits the fear factor worked. Salty about the pacifist wrote, the spirit asks why he doesn't just permanently delete the problem, but Simon claps back that he doesn't have the green light for that. Staring up at the chill night sky, the MC explains that his whole mercenary gig of helping randoms actually has an endgame. He spills that it's all about balancing his karma for what he's planning to do soon, so he doesn't want to rack up bad vibes by ending some useless guy. The forest goes totally quiet while he stews over his own ultimate goal. With a look full of pure focus, he swears to himself he won't cross that line until he officially takes out that one specific guy. The next morning drops, and the vibe in the village is super relaxed under a bright, easygoing sun. The heavy coin bag gets slammed back onto the wooden table, leaving the locals totally shook. The village chief listens, completely mind-blown, to the rundown of how their supposed hero from yesterday was a total fraud. Simon casually mentions that he just happened to catch the scammer trying to ghost them with their entire payroll. Handing back the recovered stash, he drops some advice for the locals to be way less naive when making deals with randoms. The villager finally connects the dots, looking pretty embarrassed for falling for such a low-tier scam. He admits the guy looked sus from day one, but the town was in such a bad spot they grabbed onto literally any lifeline. The young mage just listens to the vent session quietly, totally getting how heavy that desperation feels. Not wanting to get stuck chatting, he turns around and drops a "gotta blast," getting ready to hit the road. Right then, before he can even step through the door, a woman from the town runs up begging him to hold up a sec. She steps up carefully, explaining they are broke as a joke and losing that cash would have basically game overed everyone's hopes. Looking super relieved, the woman thanks him for being a real one and apologizes for giving him the side eye the day before. Handing over a little cloth bundle, she hooks him up with some road snacks, feeling bad it's the only tip they can afford right now. The village boss waves from outside, wishing the kid good RNG on his travels as he slowly walks off. Totally caught off guard by the nice gesture, the kid touches his face, taking in the pure good vibes from people who literally have nothing. Back inside, the local claps his hands to get everyone's eyes on him, saying they need to stop wasting time and get back to the search party. The woman is a bit lost on the sudden vibe shift, having zero clue where they should even start looking next. Before anybody can take a step, the sound of heavy boots echoes at the entrance. With the sun hitting his back and the boss, level bird on his shoulder, the real Wind Mage steps back in, making his presence known. Staring down the locals, the MC decides to stick around and asks them to give him the straight facts on what's actually going down here. The village chief, looking totally burnt out and terrified, spills that recently a kid just straight up vanished. But then he drops the bomb that it escalated. Now every single kid in town has been ghosted without a trace. He adds that, in the middle of all this panic, they actually managed to find the very first missing kid. But it was a worst-case scenario. The boy was found passed away, missing a pretty important piece of his chest. Simon gets visibly triggered by how brutal that is and questions the creepy detail, only to hear the guy say it definitely wasn't a wild animal's doing. Breaking down the horror story, Simon instantly clocks that the chest wound sounds like it was done with surgical precision using a blade. In the mage's head, a nightmare flashback triggers, a cycle holding a beating heart while fire literally eats everything in the background. He relives the split second when a vicious, fast strike sliced the air right in front of him. Then, a broken voice echoes in his memories, aggressively demanding he do something useful for once in his life. The flashback drops an image of his younger self, having a total meltdown crying in the middle of all that suffocating chaos. His childhood trauma is stamped with the crazy eyes of the guy who totally ruined his life. The attacker steps up surrounded by fire, holding his hand out demanding they hand over the core. Snapping back to now, the village boss is venting about how this whole insane tragedy is driving the town crazy, while the kid just listens, looking down. Right behind him, a local throws out a wild theory that this dark mystery might actually be tied to magic. Shocked by the random guess, the chief asks why the guy would even go there. Taking over the mic, Simon explains that up until a few years ago, people in this continent actually bought into a super weird conspiracy theory. He spills that the rumor claimed eating a young mage's heart would give magic buffs, even to a normal person, which kicked off a ruthless witch hunt for these kids. Freaking out, the leader instantly shoots back, promising their town has zero ties to any magic stuff. Channeling some green energy into his hands, the MC explains that human mana fades when you grow up, but in kids, it's super easy to scan for hidden potential. Spawning a ball of pure wind, he holds his arm out and flat out asks what the locals are seeing in his hand. Everyone crowds around the random kid in the room, staring super hard at the glowing trick. Scratching his chin, the boss squints and awkwardly says it just looks like a blue light bulb putting off a chill breeze. With the tiny wind spirit Ellie buzzing around inside the spell, the kid asks if they seriously don't see anything hanging out inside the light. The locals look totally lost and ask what exactly they're supposed to be spotting in his magic trick. Getting the picture, Simon mentally confirms that non-magic folks can't see spirit forms, wondering if the bad guy's targets actually needed active mana. Right then, the same lady who gave him snacks cuts in, remembering somebody pulling a very similar stunt in town recently. She spills that some hooded guys from the Ernia church went door to door holding a weird lantern, asking the locals what they saw in the glow. The mage grabs the woman's shoulders tight and intensely asks if she got a good look at any of their faces. Staring a hole through her, he aggressively pushes to find out if one of them had a super specific look. Pulling his own collar up over his face, he mimics a mask to try and ID his personal demon. The outsider describes the guy's creepy vibe down to the details and asks if anyone looking like that was hanging with the squad. The camera cuts to the MC Power walking through the woods, with only his spirit buddy tagging along. He's making the trek in dead silence, downloading all the crazy new intel he just got. The woman's letdown of an answer is looping in his head. She couldn't see a single face in the group. She mentioned they were all rocking heavy hoodies and masks, playing the "We're just humble monks on a mission" card. Her story confirmed the lantern was throwing off a mystic yellow glow, way too similar to the light he just showed them. Doing the math, the kid figures the yellow light had to be a spirit and tries to wrap his head around why the official kingdom religion would be beta, testing kids' magic potential like that. The Spirit King floats next to him, asking if the kid actually believes this is the work of the guy they're hunting. The legendary bird drops a reality check, saying he might be wasting time playing Superman for these randoms and needs to focus on the main quest. But the mage fires back, bringing up Klane's track record of being obsessed with hunting young mages, pointing out the victim's details perfectly match the Muo. Parkering down a rocky mountain slope, he states with absolute zero doubt that all the puzzle pieces lock together. Elkeen argues back hard that the village kids have zero magic stats, which totally wrecks any logical reason for a mass kidnapping. Sticking a clean landing, the kid makes it crystal clear that, even with the plot holes, he'd never just walk away from this kind of mess. The crunch of his boots sliding on the dirt signals the end of his steep downhill speedrun. Standing on the high ground with a sick view of the whole map, he plots to scan the zone, absolutely sure he'll find a solid clue nearby. The spirit is totally lost on why they climbed up there, but the boy points out that a massive group of hostages couldn't travel far without triggering alarms. Catching the breeze, he smirks and hits the nail on the head. The kidnappers had to set up their spawn point super close to the village. Staring at the massive forest, the MC realizes the only reason the locals haven't stumbled on the base is because it's cloaked by magic. Reaching his hand out with max drip, he throws the scammer's quote right back, saying there's no place the wind can't sneak into. Flexing his mana like it's nothing, he summons dozens of tiny green spirits that scatter across the whole zone below like a drone swarm. Totally dialed in, the mage waits patiently with his eyes shut, while his little trackers scan every single inch of the map. He's running a high-tier sensory setup with the spirits, basically giving himself wall hacks for the whole forest. The mini wind guys zoom through the trees, checking the heavy brush for anything glitchy. Hooked up to this mystic network, the kid gets a flawless 4K stream of the ground level. Boom, one of the mini scout spots a weird circular glitch in the bushes, exposing a shielded zone. The kid snaps his eyes open and cuts the spell, pinning the exact coordinates on his mental map. He walks through the overgrown trail, heading straight for the waypoint he just dropped. Right in front of him, an invisible wall does a little shimmer between the trees, confirming a heavy-duty illusion barrier is up. Shooting a sharp look, he tells his flying duo they finally found the bad guy's lobby. Standing right in front of the camo, he's actually pretty impressed they managed to hide a whole building without dropping any obvious hints. The legendary bird crosses its wings, looking salty, and tells the kid to hurry up and smash the annoying firewall. Shrugging it off, Simon casually admits he has zero clue how to hack a barrier like this, leaving the bird absolutely floored by his lack of a game plan. Raising his hand and charging up some heavy energy, the mage decides the easiest fix is just forcing the server admins to come outside. Pulling a massive flex of brute strength, he summons the absolute unit of a greater wind spirit, a giant wind dragon that lights up the whole block. Elkeen instantly stresses out, sweating bullets as he warns that bunga damage won't scratch a shield designed to counter magic. Totally ghosting his partner's advice, the mage locks in and guides the insane attack. The heavy-hitting spell dives from the sky and starts spinning into a focused drill aimed right at the floor. Locked onto the target, he calls the ultimate movie, the Cyclonic Lance. The massive wind drill slams into the dirt right outside the barrier, shredding the ground like a blender. A huge explosion of debris kicks up a massive dust cloud everywhere. Panicking at the kid's totally reckless play, the Spirit King starts roasting him without holding back. Huge chunks of rock and dirt get launched into the stratosphere, triggering a massive earthquake across the whole zone. The wrecked Earth comes crashing back down with insane, uncontrollable physics. Simon does a quick backstep, tactically retreating before he gets clapped by his own chaotic mess. Touching down in a safe zone, he takes cover while the poor bird practically chokes on the thick dust cloud he just spawned. The crazy impact tears massive cracks in the ground, making the earth shake all around the hidden base. Thanks to the earthquake shaking things up, the invisibility cloak glitches out and drops, exposing an old stone fortress. With the dust settling, the kid drops some logic. The building looked way too small to stash dozens of missing kids. He guessed there had to be a massive basement level, and the best way to get the underground crew's attention was to literally shake the building. Defeated by that aggressive galaxy brain logic, Elkeen crosses his tiny wings and admits the chaotic strat actually worked. Flashing a confident grin, Simon tells the spirit to chill, since they basically got exactly what they wanted. The huge stone tower is now sticking out like a sore thumb in the clearing, totally stripped of its camouflage. Chilling behind a tree, the young mage hard aims at the front door. The rubble from his orbital strike shows a dark, quiet hallway at the base of the tower. Playing bouncer at the door, a guy wearing a heavy, dark cloak is just standing there looking super edgy. The dude is rocking a weird blindfold, which screams he's part of the same sketchy cult the locals were talking about. Playing it tactical, the MC scans the guard from a distance, waiting for the perfect frame to strike. Right then, the hoodie guy seems to notice a weird vibe and quietly turns toward the tree line. He takes a few steps away from the door, heading out to check the fallout from the random earthquake. Grabbing the perfect window, Simon stealths into the guy's blind spot, using magic to completely mute his own footsteps. Before the guy can even blink, the kid drops a lightning-fast, critical hit, knocking the guard out cold and zip, tying him to a nearby tree. Already wearing the enemy's minimalist fit, the outsider drops a sarcastic line about borrowing the skin for a bit. Fully in stealth mode, he walks right into the enemy base like he owns the place, leaving the daylight behind. The kid's face gets way more serious the second he feels the absolutely toxic vibe inside. Walking down a long, creepy staircase, the kid realizes his gut feeling was spot on from the start. Adjusting the final piece of his cosplay, he ties the blindfold over his own eyes. Ready for the infiltration mission, the mage asks his flying Cytoveric if they're good to push. The stairs feel like they go on forever, dropping them into the bottom of a massive underground cave glowing with a sketchy blue light. Hitting the bottom floor, the kid's boots touch down on a super bumpy surface tangled with huge, glowing roots. Checking out the alien-looking map, he is pretty mind-blown by how huge this secret room is. The kid whispers that humans definitely did not build this place. Poking the sticky walls, he wonders if the whole base is just a pile of roots and petrified tree sap. The Spirit King instantly yells at the kid not to touch anything, pointing at some highly suspicious mushrooms nearby. Elkeen drops the lore that those shrooms are basically landmines if you tap them wrong, and the sap everywhere would turn the place into a giant oven if it caught a spark. The MC asks how the bird knows all the patch notes, and the creature claps back with max sarcasm, reminding him he's got thousands of years of XP on him. But the chat gets cut off when Simon tells the spirit to mute, catching someone walking their way. Another cultist holding a box walks up, asking if the supposed guard already checked out the noise outside. Staying in character, the fake guard lies, saying the noise was just some rocks falling and, luckily, there's no real damage to the base. The squadmate listens to the excuse quietly, looking like he's running a vibe check on the info. The tension spikes when the guy pauses, clearly sensing that something is extremely off here. Sweating the long silence, the mage wonders if his disguise just got exposed this fast. Then the guy points straight at the kid's shoulder, asking what the deal is with the bizarre bird chilling there. Having a total panic moment, the kid realizes his massive rookie mistake of forgetting that wearing his pet like a cosmetic item was beyond sus. The blue bird glares right back at the dude, looking totally offended that a basic human would dare question his existence. The cultist stares hard through his blindfold, scanning the creature with max suspicion. With a jerky move, the cult guy tries to shoo the bird away with his hand, complaining and asking how long that pest has been hanging around inside. Still recovering from the mini heart attack, the spy listens to his cult co-worker flame him for slacking on security and letting a random animal sneak in. Playing his role, the kid drops his head and says, "My bad," for the security fail. But deep down, the mage is internally screaming as he sees the spirit's terrifying aura spiking behind him, knowing the bird is gonna hold a massive grudge for being treated like a street pigeon. Dropping the drama, the cultist tightens his grip on the box and tells his fake buddy to forget it and hustle up. Trailing the guy, Simon tries to fish for intel, casually asking what kind of loot is in the box. The guy mentions they just got a high-priority ping from the admins while showing off a nightmare kit packed with sharp tools. Sounding completely unhinged, the guide says they gotta speedrun the job to harvest and ship the next batch of vital bits from the kidnapped kids. Hearing that hits the kid like a truck, instantly triggering the horrible flashback of that scary villain demanding a heart. The shock literally freezes the MC in his tracks, earning a shout from the cultist to keep moving. Swallowing his rage, the undercover hero fakes a submissive tone and says he's coming. The creepy walk leads them to an isolated zone, blocked by a heavy, scary-looking iron door. The rusty bars lock in a room that is pitch black, damp, and looks totally forgotten. The annoying buzz of flies sets the miserable vibe of the prison. One of the locked-up kids is just staring blankly, literally out of energy to even swat a bug away from their face. Sitting on the gross floor, a little boy is quietly crying for his mom, with a plate of untouched food in his hands. Other hostage kids are just crashed on the stone floor, completely drained and out of hope after being in the dark for so long. A couple of girls are hugging in a corner, just trying to find a tiny bit of comfort in this endless nightmare. Total panic hits the group when the two hooded guys walk up to the bars, making everyone scramble backward in terror. Looking through the bars, these two villains are literally the final bosses for these innocent kids. The guy running the op points to a specific spot, telling the rookie to play lookout right there. Pushing the heavy cell door open, he strolls in with a sickeningly calm vibe. Staring down the terrified victims huddled in the dark, the cultist hums a twisted little tune, debating which one he's gonna harvest first. Simon is stuck at the door, watching depressing scene unfold as the bad guy picks his next target. The kid's face hides pure, uncontrollable rage, bottling up all his hate for this mess while quietly plotting his next play. One of the kids is already strapped down with heavy chains on a stone slab, with zero chance of dodging. The poor kid is bawling his eyes out while the dude steps up, trying to act comforting in the most twisted way possible. Rocking a massive, nightmare, fuel smile, the villain promises the victim that the pain will be over in a flash. The kid can barely breathe, he's so scared, just waiting for the absolute worst ending. Without taking his eyes off the slab, the cultist holds his hand back, telling his partner to pass him a tool. Following the command, the stranger slowly pulls the cold item out of the box. The victim squeezes their eyes shut, just hoping the suffering ends through some less painful glitch. Annoyed by the lag, the criminal raises his voice and tells his partner to hurry up with the handoff. But instead of helping, the mage pushes forward ruthlessly and lands a perfect, agonizing critical hit right in the attacker's back. The surprise impact makes the cultist freeze in shock, feeling the karma hit his HP bar hard. Taking the window, Simon instantly spawns a thick green tornado to blast the guy away from the kid. Getting aggressively yeeted backward by the wind, the criminal screams in pain, demanding to know the hacker's username. The sheer force of the magic rips the weird blindfold off, dropping it onto the freezing dungeon floor. Completely outplayed, the guy throws a hand up in a useless attempt to block what's coming next. Showing his real face wrapped in a ruthless wind aura, the MC coldly drops the rulus. He's the only one asking questions here. And the enemy just gets to answer. From the heavy impact, the cultist gets brutally launched backward through the air. He goes flying across the dark cell, totally unable to break against the wind pressure. Trying to figure out how the invader found their server, the guy realizes he needs to ping the rest of the guild fast. But before he can even click anything, he slams hard into the thick iron bars and lets out a massive scream. The locked-up kids watch the whole thing totally mind-blown, shrinking into a corner with zero idea of what is happening. Giving the enemy absolutely zero breathing room, Simon rushes in at insane speed, boosted by his own magic. Capitalizing on the stun, the kid drops a merciless combo of wind blasts that literally crushes the criminal against the bars. With a furious glare, the MC demands to know the exact coordinates of Clean Heist right now. The cultist lifts his head looking super beat up, completely confused by the question. He asks how this random kid even knows that specific gamertag. Totally ignoring the enemy's confusion, the mage cranks up the magic and throws all the atrocities committed by the Erna Church right in his face. With a voice packed with pure hate, the kid asks if the current king is also looking to rip out a young caster's heart. Right then, a razor-sharp wind blade slices through the air, heading straight for the guy. The attack lands a direct hit, pulling a scream out of the criminal, who can barely stand from the debuffs. Pinning the guy down with magic, Simon repeats the demand ice cold, ordering him to spill the beans and drop the target's location. The cultist spits blood and, sounding like he's hitting Alt F4 on life, just asks the kid to finish the job right there. Hearing the weird request, the hero is clearly thrown off by the enemy's sudden, "guess I'll die" attitude. Way below them, a little magic gadget drops from the criminal's hand and bounces on the stone floor. Letting out a weak, trollish laugh, the guy reveals the item is actually the base's panic button. The device triggers instantly, sending out a massive magic pulse that pings the entire underground bunker. Totally sure his squad will take the W, the guy mocks the kid, mentioning they have another mage on the roster and promising the invader is getting sent back to the lobby. Hitting him with a dark, terrifying look, the MC warns he'd never be dumb enough to forget a detail like that. Suddenly, a panicked scream echoes from the floor above as the supposed backup mage gets violently yeeted through the air by a wind tornado. The hoodie guy's body slams into the floor with insane force, taking a direct hit right to the face. Completely knocked out, the second bad guy is just laid out on the stone floor with zero chance to parry. Watching the scene with pure disgust, Simon mutters about how annoying it is to have to farm these rats one by one. Leaning against the bars, the first cultist's eyes bug out, paralyzed seeing his teammate get folded that easily. Without missing a beat, the dark-haired kid starts dragging the KO'd body down the creepy hallway. Walking up to the guy he was interrogating, he just dumps the unconscious teammate without a drop of care. The knocked-out dude crashes heavily at his partner's feet, making it crystal clear who's holding the controller right now. The sound of a massive squad rushing down the halls starts echoing, proving the alarm actually worked. A huge mob of cultists spawns at the room's entrance, looking totally lost and asking what the glitch is. The guy dumped by the bars panics and yells that a solo mage breached the base and already dropped one of their guys. Processing the intel, the newcomers try to figure out if the hacker got hired by the neighboring village. Knowing they got a rush, one of the thugs pulls a sharp knife, ready to throw hands. But when they actually look into the lit area, they spot their defeated teammate rolling in pain on the floor. The whole squad instantly freezes, totally grossed out by the brutal scene they walked into. Standing casually in a pile of KO'd bodies, Simon stays stone cold and asks if the whole enemy team is finally in one spot. Scanning the kid's terrifying aura, one of the raid leaders instantly clocks that they aren't fighting some random noob. Scared of losing their numbers advantage, he screams at his minions to gang up and rush him together. In the backline, an enemy caster starts charging up a complex purple magic circle in his hands. Meanwhile, the frontline just bungas forward with their weapons, screaming trash talk at the solo invader. Without even changing his expression, the MC raises an arm and calls up a heavy blast of green wind. The spell flows with aimbot precision, blasting the first guy trying to rush in with a knife. The hit is so massive the guy gets tossed back like he has zero weight, screaming as he flies down the hallway. The gale keeps blowing like an unbreakable firewall, aggressively knocking back anyone dumb enough to push. Triggering his spiral tech, the hero drops a massive tornado that vacuums up a bunch of cultists at once, slamming them into the walls. Watching the owl from the back, the enemy mage recognizes the nature spirits and figures out the invader is a super rare spirit contractor. Finishing his cast, the criminal yells his arcane spell's name and fires a high, damage pink beam right at the kid. Watching the lethal shot zip towards him, Simon just stares at it with unbothered chill. The magic strike nails the ground with max power, triggering a flashbang explosion that kicks up a ton of dirt. Betting everything on his spell, the caster drops a victory laugh, 100% sure that nuke was enough to end the match. But the smoke clears super fast, showing the impact zone is totally empty. The enemy's smirk gets deleted instantly, swapping to absolute panic when he realizes his ultimate completely whiffed. Like a literal ghost, the Wind Mage spawns in dead silence right behind the squad leader. Stuttering in pure terror, the guy tries to process how the kid used fast travel to get there. Refusing to explain his strats, the MC drops a devastating hit on the guy's back, pancaking him against the stone floor. Stepping hard on the downed enemy, the hero guesses this guy is the boss and repeats his question about Clean Hace's coordinates. Even while coughing up blood, the leader starts laughing like a psycho, thinking it's hilarious the hacker is looking for a dude instead of saving the hostages. The weird tone and random answer make the kid step back a bit, pretty surprised by the prisoner's absolute audacity. Rocking a sick smile, the cult boss drops the spoiler that it doesn't matter, cause they're all getting buried alive in about 10 seconds anyway. He casually drops that he set the dungeon to auto, delete if the guards didn't disable the system after the alarm tripped. Right on cue, a muffled boom echoes through the cave as the massive support pillars start cracking on their own. The ceiling's code can't handle the magic pressure, causing massive chunks of stone to violently crash to the floor. To avoid getting flattened by the falling hitboxes, Simon is forced to burn a quick backstep. Exploiting the chaos and dust, the enemy leader turns his back and sprints like crazy toward the back of the cave. Sticking a clean landing, the kid drops into a combat stance and warns he isn't letting the target log off that easily. Looking over his shoulder, the thug asks if the hero is seriously gonna tunnel vision on him while dozens of kids are about to get squashed. The cheap shot makes the mage's glare get even sharper, calculating the best play in a fraction of a second. Using a quick wind dash, the kid moves at a totally busted speed, leaving his target frozen in pure shock. Pure panic takes over the cultist's face when he realizes the kid is basically breathing down his neck, eyes glowing with intense blue energy. Right above them, a ridiculous amount of dirt and stone pillars keeps dropping, threatening to game over the whole map. Jumping right past the enemy with insane hops, the hero completely ignores the guy to focus on the massive hazard falling from the sky. The high-speed pass creates wild turbulence that knocks the cult leader off his feet, leaving him groaning on the floor. Going full try hard to protect the hostages, the kid uses concentrated magic to snipe the giant rocks out of the air before they can hit the ground. From the massive shockwave, the cult boss gets shoved back with zero chance to block the wind tornado. Taking heavy damage, he groans as he tries to tank the insane hit. Simon just stares him down with ice in his veins, keeping his stance flawless in the middle of a literal disaster. Trying to act tough, the criminal yells that it's GG's and the kids are gonna get buried because the invader messed up. Backing up the threat, huge chunks of the ceiling start dropping dangerously close to them. The dark cave is crashing down faster and faster, turning into a total death trap. Panicking hard, the cult boss screams, asking if the kid honestly thought they'd make it out of the lobby alive. Right then, a razor-sharp beam of green magic tears through the air at max speed. The wind blast snipes the falling debris with aimbot precision, shattering the solid rock like it's cheap glass. The hero flexes his raw stats to vaporize all the falling junk, throwing up an absolute god mode shield around the zone. With maximum chill, he says he'll pop open and exit, and they'll have plenty of time to chat outside. The cultist's eyes pop out of his head, totally blown away by the opponent's ridiculous confidence. Barely possessed that the kid plans to drill a hole straight through 100 meters of solid rock, but realizes with that kind of OP stat line, it's 100% doable. Knowing he's gonna get heavily interrogated, the guy opts for a bad ending and triggers a self-destruct spell. Spotting the sketchy animation, the mage snaps his head around, realizing the enemy is queuing up something serious. He turns his whole body, completely shook to see red energy pouring out of the cult boss. The chaotic magic force knocks the criminal backward while the spell charges up out of control. It's super obvious that glowing arcane symbols are lighting up all over the downed guy's body. The kid puts it together that the enemy slotted an extreme damage spell so he wouldn't get taken alive. Not wasting a single frame, the mage summons Elberon, a majestic winged spirit that lights up the dark. Realizing it's too late to dodge, he decides to face tank the blast using a heavy duty defense buff. The cultist's glitchy spell hits the red line and starts to detonate. Looking stressed, Simon triggers his ultimate block tech, the Feathered Guard. Instantly, the giant spirit wraps the kid in wings of energy, dropping a full-on immunity shield around him. The camera cuts to the forest surface, where some white birds are just chilling on a branch. But they instantly scatter when a massive earthquake rocks the area near the stone tower. A pillar of red energy blasts out of the ground, ripping the earth apart with crazy destructive physics. The explosion is absolute overkill, wiping out every single thing built on top of the underground bunker. Tons of debris and boulders get launched into orbit by the insane blast. When the server finally stops lagging, all that's left is a massive, smoking crater sitting in the middle of the chill forest. Through the settling dust, heavy boots crunch on the rocky floor of the crater. The MC steps out looking totally gassed, feeling the HP drain from the recent boss fight on his own beaten-up body. As the spirit shield fades, he knows for a fact he'd be hitting the restart screen if he lagged even 1 second on that block. Gripping his arm out of pure frustration, he curses the whole event for letting his only solid lead ghost him. His head gets hijacked by the crazy memory of Klein, wondering what kind of psycho strat involves dressing thugs up like priests. Trying to catch his breath, he takes a deep sigh and realizes he's totally out of stamina and mana to even think straight. The kid's burnt-out eyes show the raw physical toll of tanking a nuke like that. Right then, a chill green breeze starts sweeping across the wrecked boss arena. Floating down super slow from the sky, the giant wind spirit drops off the kidnapped kids safely inside magic bubbles. The little guys are exhausted and scared to death, but they're finally out of that underground nightmare. Some of them can barely keep their eyes open, literally passing out on the grass after all that trauma. Seeing the rescue mission actually worked, the mage looks super relieved he didn't leave a single player behind. Staring up at the clear sky, he calls GG on the mission and decides it's time to fast travel back to the village. The scene shifts to the town, where the locals are running around hyped, screaming for their carry. The group leader runs up out of breath, calling him crazy for trying to leave without saying bye, and begging him to chill in town a bit longer. Being polite, the kid thanks them for the hype, but drops that he's got a huge grind ahead of him and can't stay logged in here. Totally shocked, the locals beg him to just hang for 1 more minute before he bounces. The village boss hands over a little bag packed with coins, desperately asking him to take it as a reward for the hard carry. Right behind him, the same lady who hooked him up before pulls up with a care package, offering some road snacks to say thanks. The traveler goes quiet for a sec, actually feeling the genuine love from these low-level NPCs. Politely putting a hand up, he rejects the gold, explaining that official quests are billed through guilds, which isn't what happened here. The villagers listen to his logic looking totally confused, not getting why he'd turned down free loot after sweating so hard. Only grabbing the snack pack, the kid says he cleared the event because he wanted to, and the food is totally enough. Skips forward, showing a super chill orange sunset. A busted old wagon rolls slowly down a dirt road, acting as the hero's ride to the next waypoint. Inside, the magic bird is clicking its beak, clearly salty about something his master pulled. The legendary bird calls the kid a total psycho for making such a reckless play while the cave was collapsing. The spirit roasts him, saying that secretly summoning a top-tier entity mid-fight was an absolute troll move. He points out that rerouting the magic super far away just to bubble the hostages burned a massive chunk of his HP. Taking the flame session in silence, the MC watches the view while the bird reminds him any slip up would have meant a team wipe. Flexing his boss aura, the creature warns that even as the Spirit King, his stats are capped and he can't revive someone who constantly jumps into hazards. Staying chill, the kid calls his partner's name, trying to de-escalate the chat. He jokes around, asking why the bird is sulking in the corner of the wagon, but the bird denies it and mumbles he doesn't even care about what happened. Looking a bit awkward, the mage says, "My bad," and admits he literally had 0 other options in that sweaty moment. Turning its head away on purpose, the spirit sighs, whispering that his worst RNG drop ever was signing a contract with this exact kid. Switching topics, Elkin asks what kind of intel he actually scraped on their target. Reaching into his cloak pocket, the hero shows he didn't pull Klein's exact GPS coordinates, but he didn't leave empty-handed either. He pulls out a burnt piece of paper looted from the base, pointing to a supposed religious branch in the next town over. The picture shows a massive cathedral, while the kid explains the spot is home to a super-rich, high-tier division of the Ernia Church. Putting the clues together, he figures the thugs knew clean, and since the villain would never simp for a god, it's highly likely the cult is a massive front. The bird gives a nod, totally convinced there's a heavy link in this whole mystery. The clacking of the wooden wheels is the only sound in the quiet trip. Dropping the joke voice, the Spirit King admits he's been wondering for a while what that guy did to mess up the kid's backstory so badly. The bumpy wagon goes dead silent, proving the bird just stepped on a massive landmine. Noticing the mage's mute reaction, the bird instantly realizes the debuff is way worse than he guessed. The awful memory hits Simon so hard he actually gasps inside the ride, totally startling the wind spirit. With his head down in the shadows, the kid looks heavily weighed down by his dark lore. The story then rewinds 10 years, dropping us straight into the Kingdom of Terrace, where two warriors are sweating it out in the arena. The clash of swords echoes everywhere as they trade heavy hits in a spar that feels way too personal. Fight, the guy with brown hair yells out, totally triggered, asking how his opponent could be so toxic after 10 years of co-op. Ice cold and completely unbothered, the guy with the black beard just claps back that a swordsman talks with his blade, not the mic. Without a second thought, he wins up a heavy strike, while his weapon starts glowing with insane red energy. A massive wave of red aura rips through the air, crashing down on his old duo partner. The incoming nuke leaves the warrior frozen, realizing his defense stats are way too low to block that. Thanks to the extreme damage multiplier on the hit, the brown-haired guy gets launched backward like a ragdoll. He smacks the arena floor hard, officially ending the duel while the guards watch. Instantly, the server announcer calls the winner of the honor match, hyping up the captain of the Royal Guard, Clean Hayes. Sheathing his sword, the winner trolls his defeated friend, claiming the weapon just delivered the final patch notes they needed. Right then, the arena gates swing open and the guards announce the king has entered the chat. The monarch slowly rolls in, flexing hands full of pay, to win rings while he checks out the end of the match. Leaning on his cane, the old ruler says he logged in to watch the first honor duel in years, but is bummed he only caught the end screen. Pointing at the loser, he asks if Klein feels any guilt for friendly firing an ex-teammate, quickly deciding that a trash-tier weapon deserves to get dismantled. With a greedy look, the king hypes up the winner, calling him the absolute carry of the kingdom. Bowing to show respect, the captain agrees coldly and swears he only exists to clear the king's quest log. The scene skips to the royal dining room in the middle of the night. Chewing on some meat, the king rants about the mages dodging the military draft, calling them all useless noobs. A weird chunk of food with his fork, he asks if the guard has heard the urban legend that eating a young mage's heart grants magic buffs. Kneeling on the other side of the massive empty table, Klein calmly confirms he knows that dark lore perfectly. Enjoying his cursed meal, the boss drops his insane plan to respec into a wizard, admitting he has zero clue how many more he needs to consume. Staring at his minion with absolute crazy eyes, the old man swears he totally trusts his loyalty to grind out this mission. Teasing a massive loot drop, the king asks if it isn't a total waste for someone with his stats to just be a captain without a VIP title. Time skips forward, showing the sunset lighting up the premium rooftops of the capital. Inside his dark room, Klein drops to his knees and swears absolute loyalty. Radiating pure villain energy, the guy promises he'll clear the king's requests flawlessly, already scheming his next toxic moves. Far away from all that, the vibe shifts to a chill cabin in the woods, where a voice is correcting a kid's combat animations. Out in the yard, the brown-haired guy is fixing Simon's stance while they practice with wooden swords. The kid is completely out of stamina, barely holding the weapon up while trying to download the tutorial. The redhead girl next to him complains, asking if he's already out of juice, and the kid pants out a, "My bad." Laughing it off, the instructor calls a timeout, ignoring the girl who was totally ready to keep grinding. Right then, the guy spots someone walking into the yard and announces their guest finally spawned. Klein strolls down the dirt path looking super pleased, tossing a friendly wave at the kid. The kid tries to wave back, looking hyped for a split second. But the happy face gets instantly deleted, swapped out for a look of absolute nightmare fuel. The vibe completely tanks when Simon feels the newcomer's freezing aura and greets him by calling him dad. Wasting no time, the tutorial restarts on hard mode, with the wooden swords clashing violently. Looking like a total drill sergeant, the captain tells his kid to run it back after blowing a combo. The sound of the weapons smacking echoes through the woods, while the sweaty grind keeps going without a pause. The afternoon drags on and the sun drops, but the torture continues in the yard with Klein relentlessly demanding the kid get up and fight. Pulling a completely toxic move, the villain lands a heavy hit on his own kid, showing zero chill. The kid hits the grass defeated, while his dad just stares at him in dead silence, reviewing the kid's trash performance. Stuck in the dirt on his knees, little Simon struggles to breathe, feeling the HP drop from the spam attacks. His eyes bug out in pure fear when he looks up and sees the absolute raid boss that's supposed to be his protector. Glaring at the kid like he's garbage, Klain says the attack wasn't even worth hitting the dodge button for, wondering if the kid is even really his. Without a single drop of pity, the villain lands another heavy strike that yeets the kid across the yard into the dark. The boy rolls on the dirt coughing in pain, completely stunned, locked by the insane bullying. Hearing the racket, Rosette rushes out of the cabin, totally panicking to see what the glitch is. Triggered by the scene, he demands to know why his buddy is handing out such an extreme ban, reminding him the kid is only 9 years old. Keeping his insane lack of empathy, the captain claps back, asking since when kids get plot armor on the battlefield, flaming his old teammate for being a softie. Dropping a scary glare, he rubs it in that his other 2 kids were already taking the Royal Guard entrance exam at that exact age. Shaking in pain and fear on the ground, the kid can't stop the tears when he hears his own dad call him a literal bot. Skips inside the house, showing a table loaded with bread for dinner to try and reset the bad vibes. The brown-haired guy sweetly asks if his nephew is doing okay, and the boy gives a tiny nod. Eating, the redhead girl promises that next time she's gonna throw hands with that bad man to protect her cousin. Trying to play peacemaker, Rosette says the captain didn't mean to be so toxic, but Simon sadly admits he wishes his sword stats were higher. With super wholesome energy, the uncle hypes the kid up, promising he's got his own special traits that make him an absolute rare drop. Dropping a major plot point, Rosette asks if the kid told his dad about his insane hack for using spirit magic yet. Gripping his shirt feeling totally insecure, the boy admits he didn't have the guts because he gets paralyzed with fear. Just looking at him. Offering an assist, the uncle promises to try and chat with Klain about it, making the kid's eyes light up with hope. Sounding super friendly, the warrior swears the captain is going to be incredibly proud when he finds out about his son's hidden skill tree. The flashback ends on a super dark note, with the villain's voice echoing in present-day Simon's head while he tries to wipe that cursed save file. Outside the wagon, the late afternoon stays chill as they cruise down the road under an orange sky. Inside the ride, the spirit bird spots his human partner, looking totally depressed in dead silence, realizing things got real. Knowing he poked a sensitive spot, the bird backs off the interrogation, saying the kid can drop the lore later since he's got a rough idea of what went down. Snapping out of his thoughts makes the kid react gently, reaching out to give the spirit some head pats. Saying my bad for going AFK, he explains he was just stuck in a sad nostalgia trip, thanking Elkine for pulling off a clutch save in his past. But the legendary creature fakes being annoyed, mumbling that saving him totally bugged his spawn animation and got him soft, locked in this weak form. The hero shows genuine love, knowing the bird actually cares a ton about him under that edgy skin. Suddenly, the road trip pauses when the driver yanks the reins hard to hit the brakes. The driver shouts from outside that it looks like there's a roadblock up ahead. Curious about the random lag, the young mage peeks out of the vehicle to see what the new side quest is. With the wagon completely stalled, the kid tells the bird he's gonna hop out and check the server status. Walking down the road, he spots another premium carriage stuck up ahead with a bunch of NPCs crowded around it. The mage scans the scene without a word, trying to figure out what the bug is. It's pretty obvious a wheel got stuck in the mud, with someone asking if the map's geometry just collapsed. A guy with long hair apologizes for the lag, saying they already sent a ping for a tow truck to get them out. Strolling up totally chill, Simon spots the glitch and politely asks if everyone's HP is full. Right then, the carriage guard pulls his weapon, totally spooked, asking who's pushing their lane, but the long-haired guy tells him to stand down. Flashing a friendly smile, the passenger points out the random is just offering a free assist. The MC gets slightly surprised when he scopes out the premium cosmetics on the guy's outfit. Thanking him for the good vibes, the guy blesses the kid in Ernia's name, leaking that he's from the exact same church as the cultists. Not wasting a frame, the mage quietly cues up a mini wind spirit. A heavy blast of green air wraps around the stuck wheel, lifting the whole rig like it weighs absolutely nothing. The carriage gets yanked out of the pit and dropped back onto the solid road with zero damage. The dark-haired kid lets out a sigh of relief, noticing that luckily the wheels didn't take any durability loss. The guard and the priest are absolutely mind-blown watching the kid deadlift that much weight without breaking a sweat. Thinking hard, the MC figures the Ernia Church just spawned a very sketchy random encounter on his route today. The priest walks up to the carry looking super chill and thankful. Flashing a polite smile, He says thanks again for getting them unstuck from that trap. Playing it humble, the mage says he just did what any decent player passing by would do. The guy swears that even if the kid thinks it's no big deal, that kind of support is always a massive carry for them. Simon just stares at the religious dude in absolute silence, scanning the lobby. The hero's sharp look shows he's highly suspicious about this random meetup in the middle of nowhere. Getting flashbacks to the unhinged cult leader he styled on in the cave, he wonders if bumping into this priest is actually just RNG. Run a vibe check on the guy, the kid says. Excuse me, and drops a quick question. He mentions he saw some church monks back in Ratville and asks if it's standard for them to grind in these low-level areas. The priest looks a little shocked to hear the name of that tiny village. Staring into the creepy woods, the priest gives a super cryptic answer, claiming Ernia has servers running everywhere in the world. Putting on a serious face, the guy reads the room and asks if some event triggered. Realizing he almost leaked his IP, the kid takes a step back and plays it off, saying it's nothing serious. Forcing a friendly smile, he hypes up the church's work in the boonies, taking a mental note that he shouldn't speedrun this interaction. The guard cuts into the chat, warning they're way behind schedule and need to keep moving. The priest agrees instantly, remembering they can't afford to waste any more time on this route. But, right before getting back in the ride, the guy turns back to the kid one last time. He officially drops his namatag as Escott, a priest of Ernia, and asks for his carry's username. Thrown off by the sudden manners, the hero pauses for a split second. Not wanting to drop his real gamertag, he makes up a Smurf account on the spot and introduces himself as Rainian. Time fast forwards to the dead of night, with the driver announcing they finally hit the waypoint. The horses stop, totally out of stamina after dragging the wagon all that way. The fast travel ends at a fork in the road, where the driver explains the map splits from here. Simon hands over some gold coins, leaving the driver absolutely stunned by the premium tip. With the spirit bird on his shoulder, the kid hears the driver drop a warning that getting into the city of Gred Hill is gonna be a massive headache. Clocks the warning, curious about why the entry requirements are so sweaty. Scoping out the massive walled city from a distance, he asks if some crazy event triggered an area lockdown. Already walking down the dark road solo, the hero heads straight for the fortress's main gates. The legendary bird twists its beak, totally annoyed, complaining the whole zone gives off a trash vibe. Scanning the heavy security, the kid agrees with the spirit that something definitely hit the fan here. To avoid drawing aggro, he decides to despawn the bird and enter the zone solo. Torches light up the massive stone walls, giving the whole area a super heavy aesthetic. A bunch of heavy wooden barricades completely block the direct path to the gates. The main entrance is heavily camped by armed guards keeping randoms away. The outsider walks up chill to the blockade to see what the deal is. Scanning the area, he figures guards are standard, but barricades that big mean the server is dealing with a major crisis. The kid remembers the driver's rumor about the church dropping a banhammer on the place, getting confused by the exact wording. He admits to himself he's only heard surface-level gossip about this supposed divine punishment. Getting close to the wood barricade, the MC gets instantly stopped by a guard barking an aggressive order. The soldier drops the rules hard, saying you only get past the gate if you have a VIP pass from the Ernia church. Keeping his cool, the mage asks what he's to do since he doesn't have the item, but gets stonewalled instantly. Looking genuinely stressed, he begs the guard to at least drop some lore on what's destroying the city. Before the guard can even answer, the sound of totally panicked footsteps rushes up behind the kid. A local sprints like a madman toward the gate, screaming that he's the only one left to look after his mom. The guards absolutely lose it and scream at the guy to back up, yelling that he's in the final stage and better not touch anybody. Simon watches the chaotic event unfold with a super serious face, trying to scan the threat level. The dude's character model is covered in bizarre blue crystals clipping through his skin, making the kid guess it's some kind of petrification debuff. Totally out of HP and desperate, the local trips and faceplants hard right next to the barricade. He groans in pain on the rocky floor, trying to crawl but lagging horribly. Terrified of the weird glitch, the soldiers scream for everyone to get inside the base right now. One of the guards shoves the hero, telling him to back the heck up, but the kid argues they should probably heal the guy. The local reaches out a shaky, crystal-covered hand begging for a revive. Crying from the pain, the infected dude vents that he still has a ton of uncompleted quests in life. A tear rolls down the guy's face as he whizzes for his mom with his very last breath. Out of absolutely nowhere, a heavy strike slices the air super violently. With zero hesitation, one of the guards lands a critical finisher on the downed local, muting the guy permanently. The MC's eyes bug out, absolutely horrified by the toxic griefer move he just watched. The unstable energy completely crashes, and the crystals start expanding like crazy. The guy's body gets instantly consumed by the glitchy magic, turning him into a bizarre crystal statue right in front of the mage. A local woman watches in pure terror, claiming that brutal game over has to be a divine ban. The downed guy's arm just keeps getting swallowed by the weird blue crystallization. Then the broken magic reacts violently, turning his entire model into a massive, creepy crystal statue right in the street. Scanning the aftermath up close, the mage raises a hand and spots a massive detail. He figures out the bug didn't spawn on the victim's skin. It actually grew from the inside out. Disgusted by the brutality, the young outsider wonders how anyone could call that kind of ending a trial. An old man screams in panic, yelling that the goddess Urnia is super tilted at the server. Dropping to his knees on the stone, the old guy prays the deity's name while crying his eyes out. In a move of pure desperation, the local slams his head hard on the ground, taking massive self-damage. With his face bleeding, the old man begs for a pardon and asks them to banish that crystallized sinner. Wasting zero time, one of the soldiers readies his spear to attack. The guards instantly surround the mage, locking onto him with their polearms. Totally lost on why he suddenly pulled aggro, the kid asks why they're acting so hostile. Clearly sweating, the soldier looks at the kid's face and tells him he's coming with them to holding. The MC just stares down the guards without saying a word, processing the new objective. Getting escorted away, the kid overhears that he's officially caught the debuff too. The interior of the map shows a massive stone statue of the city's guardian deity. Kneeling in front of the statue, the fanbase prays super hard, begging for the cursed players to beat the raid and respawn. The prayer keeps going, asking everyone to stick to the server's rulebook. Hands clasped together, one of the believers keeps his head down showing total obedience. Outside the temple, a hooded shadow speedruns silently across the city rooftops under the moon. The mysterious guy scans the street traffic with eagle eyes through the dark. Meanwhile, in the main lobby, the sound of people spamming prayers echoes non-stop. Watcher locks his camera onto a specific spot down below. With a quick hop, he jumps off the roof and totally ghosts into the shadows. Back at the entrance, the guards are still holding their weapons high, ready to drop a combo. The petrified body glows in the middle of the street, while the kid stays boxed in by the nervous squad. Then the squad leader announces that the outsider is currently failing the trial right now. Watching them freak out, the mage realizes the splash damage from the blood was the issue and wonders if the debuff is contagious. With a tactical look, he quickly calculates his escape routes. Casting his wind magic on the low, the hero plots to just use brute force if the lobby turns completely toxic. Right then, the crowd around them starts buzzing and whispering, totally shocked. Loud voice commands everyone to freeze, making the NPCs part like the Red Sea. One of the injured locals gets wide-eyed, letting out a breath of pure fanboy energy. The guard takes a step back and stutters that the high priest just logged in. The dark-haired kid turns his head, clearly caught off guard by the sudden pause in the action. Flexing a massive boss aura, the religious leader walks straight into the middle of the chaos. Escott stops right in front of the kid, instantly IDing him. The crowd starts cheering in relief, screaming the priest's name like he's a top-tier streamer. Raising a hand, the guy promises the kid is fine and orders the soldiers to stand down, ignoring the guard's hesitation. Escalate, he praises the squad's rock, solid loyalty to the goddess. Walking up to the outsider, the priest points out that their random encounter on the road was definitely not a glitch. The mage cancels his hidden spell and admits he didn't expect to run into him again so soon. A drop of blood slides down the priest's hand while he grips his premium robes tight. Totally ignoring the stain, the high priest drops to a knee in front of the injured old man to chill him out. One of the soldiers tries to explain the messy aggro, but the boss calmly states that everything is under control. Bawling his eyes out, the hurt old man begs the priest to ban that petrified sinner once and for all. The long-haired guy locks eyes with the bizarre statue and calls the victim sister. Walking past the rubble, he drops some heavy lore, saying that person's suffering sequence isn't over yet. He adds that the real server wipe will only happen when the final update finally drops. After that speech, the priest locks all his focus back onto the kid who carried him earlier. Super politely, he invites the kid to move the chat to a private lobby, away from the randoms. The kid just nods, accepting the sketchy invite from the server admin. Keeping the nice guy act up, the leader insists on paying back the massive favor from the road. The locals clear a path with total respect, watching the duo walk off toward the city center. The map changes to the dark church towers under the moonlight, where the priest asks what the kid's main quest is. Walking down the massive hallway, the outsider says he's tracking someone down, and instantly gets an offer for a party invite. The mage trails the host in dead silence, scanning the premium architecture. Hitting a room, the priest opens the door, apologizing if the setup looks a little basic. Flashing a polite smile, he invites the guest inside to sip some tea. The hot drink gets poured super carefully into a high-end porcelain cup on the table. The priest says, "My bad," for the guards being so toxic, claiming the server is going through a massive crisis. The MC cuts to the chase and asks if he's talking about the weird human crystal glitch, wanting to know if it's a brand new virus. The long-haired guy pauses, looking like he's carefully selecting his dialogue options. Acting all empathetic, he decides it's only fair to drop the lore since the kid watched the whole street event go down. The kid listens to the cutscene with max focus, looking for any plot holes in the story. Holding his cup, the religious boss firmly promises that the glitch is definitely not an infectious debuff. The nightmare image of the statue flashes as he claims the community's panic just sparked a massive rumor that's hard to patch. Annoyed by the weak excuse, the hero asks why they locked the whole server down, pointing out the ban came from the church and not the devs. He presses the issue, pointing out that a full lockdown makes zero sense if the bug isn't contagious. Trying to block the logic, the priest claims the player base is totally tilted and any random outsider could trigger a massive riot. Ignoring the fluff, the young mage asks straight up what happened to the local who crashed at the gates earlier. With a mysterious look, the priest uses the kid's fake gamertag and swears they are also digging for the patch notes. He gets super dramatic, saying the church runs a rehab center to carry the players hit by this trial. Wrapping up his sketchy speech, the guy claims these poor souls are just fighting the debuff by spamming prayers. The priest is seen walking chill through the streets at night, claiming he sends good vibes to these players every single day. He adds that, when it's all over, the goddess Urnia will definitely drop a fix for this whole nightmare. Meanwhile, the young mage is walking his own route through the dark city alone. The religious boss voice keeps playing in his head, swearing that hardcore praying is the only way the fanbase survives these bans. Flexing his unbreakable faith, Escott repeats that the goddess will bring the ultimate carry. Walking in silence, Simon mulls over why he used that specific word to describe the disaster. He puts the puzzle pieces together in his head, linking the village event with what's going down here, absolutely positive that RNG has nothing to do with it. Right then the outsider gets scared by a totally random sneeze out of nowhere. Looking at his own shoulder, he asks when Elkin actually respond. Confused, the kid asks if spirits even have a sneeze animation, and the legendary bird admits he just faked the sound code because he felt ignored. Skipping the fluff, the spirit wants to know what their next objective is in this city. The hero decides that, for now, they just gotta camp in this zone a little longer. He admits to his duo partner that the priest is 100% hiding some toxic files, but he knows he can't try to solo the entire church faction right now. Because of that, he realizes he needs to find a way more stealthy strat to dig up the lore. Suddenly, the mage's radar pings a sketchy movement behind him, and he quick dodges a sneak attack coming from the shadows. A hooded guy rushes in fast and covers the kid's mouth before he can even hit a button. The MC's eyes go wide, immediately clocking the massive danger level. Ting purely on muscle memory, the mage casts a zero-lag wind blast to break the grapple. The magic hits the attacker dead on, completely deleting his stance in a millisecond. The heavy hit launches the invader way back into the dark alley. The guy takes a nasty fall on the cobblestone, definitely feeling that random crit. A second later, he starts laughing at the whole mess, joking about his target's terrible RRNG for bumping into him of all people. The guy drops his hood and flexes that he already knows the counterplay to this spirit magic trick. But when he gets a better look at the outsider's face under the moon, he gets a massive case of déjà vu and remembers an old squadmate. Chilly dropping his hood, the kid confirms the ID and calls the mercenary by his tag Edward. The attacker's eyes practically pop out, completely shook by the reveal. Yelling in pure shock, he calls the kid by the fake name he used to know and asks what he's doing camping in this zone. Once the panic wears off, the guy starts giving the hero friendly pats, while the spirit bird complains about being treated like a basic cosmetic pet. Ignoring the bird wanting an apology, the warrior laughs loud and claims that was just his special way of sending a friend request. After the chaotic intro, the two grab a quiet spot, and the mage asks point blank why his old a partner is in this lobby. Leaning on the wall, Edward casually replies that Merce just follow the gold drops. The MC gets a flashback to when he met this guy a year ago, back when he joined the guild to farm clues about his target. Back then, the warrior used to troll the noob constantly, calling the kid a sweaty nerd who never actually played on hard mode. Putting the kid in a totally uncalled for headlock, he swore he'd level him into a real mercenary from then on. But the reality was the mage basically got stuck with all the fetch quests, like picking magic weeds, in the middle of nowhere. Even on combat raids, the guy would loot the defeated mobs and pocket the gold without the guild master ever knowing. Plus, whenever a premium client acted too toxic, he wouldn't hesitate to accidentally trigger hazards to troll them back. Snapping back to the present, the kid mentally notes that this is exactly the kind of player he should keep on his block list, while listening to the guy ask about his link to the priest. The magic creature on the kid's shoulder watches the whole dialogue tree with high curiosity. Laughing, the warrior admits it's literally impossible to load into this city without knowing the priest's stats, even if the guy doesn't know him back. The outsider kills the topic, claiming he's not in the church faction and just gave the priest a free carry on the road, quickly switching the focus back to the merc. Pulling a screenshot out of his pocket, Simon flashes Cleanhease's face and asks if his old teammate has spotted the guy on this map. Edward grabs the drawing and scans the image super hard. His troll face vanishes for a second, swapping to an incredibly focused, try-hard stare. But he quickly goes back to his chill idle animation, claiming he's never seen the dude and asking if the kid is also grinding a bounty quest here. Hyped about the RNG, the merc celebrates bumping into the hero at the perfect time. He admits he was seriously looking for a support main to buff his current raid. Explaining the quest line, the warrior says the mission is tied to the church, and since they basically run the server, they can't just bunga their way through. Bursting with confidence, he drops a premium invite for the kid to join his party for this event. Without typing a single word in chat, the mage just turns around and starts walking down the dark street. The merc is left completely ghosted, having zero reaction to getting straight up ignored like that. Scratching his head looking kinda embarrassed, he mumbles that he totally should have seen that rejection coming. The night stays freezing while the warrior sprints after his ex-partner to try and spam invites. Trailing right behind the kid, he tries to get his attention, asking why he's just wandering the map solo. Dude, the MC pushes open an inn's door and says, "Hi, excuse me." The second he asks for a room, the owner yells from the back that the server is full, 0 slots left. NPC crosses his arms with a hardcore stubborn animation, making it obvious he isn't accepting any new players. Staying chill, the kid pushes the dialogue option about the room again. The owner's eyes bug out and he starts sweating bullets, recognizing the outsider who triggered the event at the plaza. Going into full panic mode, the innkeeper grabs a wooden club and tells the kid to log off his property right now. The guy swings at the mage, who easily dodges the slow attack and back steps into the street. The next morning drops, lighting up the city's heavy stone architecture. Walking around totally out of stamina under the sun, the hero agrees with the spirit bird that the awful vibe is just the server dealing with the chaos. Stretching out a massive yawn, he says he desperately needs to hit a save point and recover his HP. The kid realizes he didn't expect the local player base to be stuck in such a high terror state, accepting he might just have to sleep on the pavement. Suddenly, his internal monologue gets paused when he spots a new NPC walking up. A super friendly girl spawns in his path, guessing he couldn't find a lobby and offering to help him out for free. Impressed by the good vibes, the outsider asks if it won't cause aggro, since everyone else has been super toxic to him. The girl grabs his hands tight and swears the locals are just acting like bots cause they don't get the gate event, saying nothing was actually confirmed. Dropping her namatag as a note, she mentions her family runs a nearby inn, and the hero replies with his Smurf name. After a short walk, they pull up to a basic building with a wooden sign out front. The door to the humble inn opens up, revealing a super cozy lobby far away from the street drama. Pulling the kid inside, the girl happily announces to her mom that she just snagged a new customer. The older woman greets them with a huge smile, welcoming the exhausted traveler to their spot. Scanning the basic room, the kid hears his new friend say the map might be old, but it's super clean and a great place to AFK. Doing some quick math, the mage figures premium city rooms usually run about 5 gold coins a night. Enoch says it's super lucky he showed up, since the crisis basically killed their player traffic. Feeling totally blessed for the carry during such a rough patch, the outsider decides to drop some extra gold as a tip. But the girl totally happily holds out her hands and demands an absolutely insane 100 gold coins per night, claiming it's a flat rate for all rooms. The kid gets hit with instant shock, completely paralyzed by the ridiculous scam pricing. Right then, the mom sprints over and starts flaming her daughter, asking what kind of glitch she's trying to pull. Looking massively embarrassed, the mom says "my bad" to the guest and instantly nerfs the price back to a totally fair 5 gold coins. Hitting a bored idle animation, the girl complains that the mark was literally about to fall for the scam, making the mage feel super awkward. Cutting the tension, the outsider hands over 10 coins, saying he'd be sleeping on the concrete if the girl hadn't thrown him an invite. The mom is absolutely hyped about the double XP payout, while the daughter flexes that pulling in players is her new main role. Hyped about her successful hustle, Enoch tells her mom to go upstairs and hit AFK for a bit. The woman happily agrees, leaving her daughter to manage the lobby while she heads up the stairs. Coming right down the steps behind her, a familiar voice drops a comment that the inn was basically on the edge of a game. Over until now. The girl asks if the guy got his HP back, and gets a loud yawn and a complaint about the mattress being rock solid. But when he actually opens his eyes, Edward completely freezes, recognizing the new player standing in the lobby. The merc points his finger looking insanely hyped, screaming the kid's fake gamer tag for the whole room to hear. The MC just facepalms and lets out a tired sigh, literally unable to believe his terrible RNG for running into this guy af again. The timeline skips forward a bit, showing an old iron pot bubbling over the stone fireplace in the lobby. The hot stew is getting slowly stirred with a wooden spoon, almost ready for the dinner event. Enoch walks up to the table super sweet, where the two outsiders are sitting waiting for the food drop. She serves the plates with care, announcing the daily special is cornbread and onion soup. Annoyed, the warrior complains out loud, asking if it isn't a bit much that they've been grinding this exact same meal for over 2 weeks. He looks at the girl and asks about her mom, wondering how many times he's got to tell the lady to actually log off and rest. Grabbing the mage in a totally unwanted hug, Edward admits he's only acting like this out of pure fear that his duo partner is going to ghost him again. Tilted by the annoying guy, Elkeen the spirit spawns out of nowhere and attacks the merc's face, making him scream in pure panic. Ignoring the guy's meltdown, Simon asks how he knew about the scam price the girl tried to pull at the front desk. Watching the girl sweep the floor in the background, the warrior drops the lore that she's grinding super hard just to pay off his commission fee. The hero doesn't quite get why she owes him, but his old teammate reminds him the server is locked down with 0 new players joining. The water sloshes softly in a wooden bucket leaning against the wall of the inn. Wringing out a wet cloth super hard, the girl hyper focuses on cleaning while Edward leaks that her dad's straight up vanished. The guy figures the girl is just forcing the happy emote so her mom doesn't get even more depressed about the missing player. Leaning right into his teammate's ear, the merc whispers that the clues point straight to the local cult, being the admins behind this. That intel hits the kid like a truck, instantly making him wonder if Priest Scott is the raid boss behind the mass disappearances. Dropping his empty plate on the table, Edward shakes his head and warns that he hasn't unlocked that level of lore yet. Downing a massive drink, the warrior guesses this questline is definitely not going to be an easy clear. The camera pans to the massive stone cathedral, dropping heavy hints that the untouchable admin of that religion is hoarding some totally cursed files. The priest boss, Level Silhouette, shows up, while the theory that he's doing all the dirty work just keeps getting stronger. Inside the premium lobby, a massive crowd of players drops to their knees in front of the high priest, begging for a carry to the light. Walking down the halls flanked by his hooded mods, the religious leader keeps his chill, peaceful aesthetic locked in. One of the players hit by the crystal glitch begs for a heal on the floor, terrified by the insane damage over time they're taking. Walking right past the low HP players, Scott coldly claims the goddess already read the patch notes, and the fear they feel is just a mandatory part of the event. The room is packed with players cursed by the glitchy magic, while the priest insists the debuff is only a temporary status effect. Totally buying into his dialogue, a follower with crystals on his face clasps his hands, holding on to pure hope for the promised buff. Touching the victim super gently, the religious guy promises the damage tick will stop the second the server gets balanced. Radiating a holy aura, he rallies the server to spam prayers for the ultimate update day to finally drop. The giant statue of the goddess just stares down from above, watching all the silent manipulation going down in the church lobby. The outsider finishes his food and drops a "thanks" for the bowl of soup. The spirit complains that the warrior trashed the food, but still cleared his plate, and gets hit with the excuse that a merc needs his stamina bar full. From upstairs, Enoch's mom's voice echoes down, telling the girl to drop the broom and finally hit AFK. But suddenly, the mom's expression turns into absolute nightmare fuel as she feels a fatal glitch triggering inside her own character model. Completely out of gas, she drops to the bedroom floor, letting whatever she was holding hit the deck with a spooky thud. Ignoring the bad vibes, Edward keeps pressing the rookie mage to quickly shake hands on a team up so they can crush this quest together. The chat gets totally hijacked by the girl's panicked scream, running totally frantic when she sees her mom on the floor. Without missing a beat, the two dudes sprint down the stairs, with the warrior yelling his lungs out asking if his buddy has any healing hacks. Busting into the room, they find the lady down, clutching her leg while twisting in pure agony. To everyone's horror, the nasty scrape on her calf is showing the early signs of that creepy blue crystal stuff taking over her skin. Glowing with wicked vibe, the mystic stone is all the proof they need that this so-called divine test just tagged the innkeeper. 2. Cut to the cathedral's basement, where the head honcho is taking a slow, dramatic walk down a super long, shadowy stone staircase. The high priest's chill footsteps echo in the freezing, pitch-black space, totally wrecking his public image as a holy dude. Hitting rock bottom of the stairs, he shows off a massive underground lockdown hidden right under the church's foundation. The guy takes a stroll through his secret dungeon, cruising through VIP-only sections. Chilling in the shadows, a hooded henchman gives a massive bow to his boss the second he gets close. The lackey reports that the search party totally scored, confirming the out-of-towner is 100% the Wind Mage teamed up with the Spirit King. Hearing the wild news, the priest lets out a mega creep squeal of fascination, totally shook by his own insanely good luck. Completely mind-blown that such a top-tier magic user just waltzed right into his trap, he hides his face in his hands. Staring like a total fanboy at the dungeon ceiling, he screams his goddess's name in full-on crazy mode. Throwing his hands up at a massive glowing orb, he gives huge props to the big boss upstairs for sending such a wild gift. The gloomy room is packed with massive chunks of blue crystal, spelling out loud and clear that he's the twisted mastermind behind the plague wrecking the neighborhood. Looking totally unhinged, the bad guy declares that the newcomer's arrival will seriously fast-track his master plan. Staring at the crystal setups, he flexes that this divine squad will build the ultimate utopia, where only magic users get to hang out. Back to the chaos at the inn, Simon takes a hard look at the lady's crystallized leg. In the corner of the room, the merc and young Enoch are stressing out, praying the guy pulls off a miracle. Right away, the mage channels that green breeze energy, desperately trying to put the brakes on the crystal stuff. But the kid starts sweating bullets, realizing with pure panic that his healing spell is doing absolutely zero. Checking out how tough the weird crystal is, he figures out there's a massive energy inside the woman violently batting away his magic. Sweating and totally drained on the bed, the girl's mom drops a super heavy plea on the squad. Terrified of the worst-case scenario, she begs them to keep it totally on the down low that she caught the condition. She drops the lore that everyone who catches this glitch gets dragged off to the Order's Purification Center. Her biggest nightmare is getting hauled off and leaving her daughter completely stranded. Confused by how spooked she is, Simon mentions he thought the place was just a regular rehab clinic. The harsh reality is that visitors are completely banned inside that building, and absolutely nobody who goes in ever comes back out. The rookie mage connects the dots, finding it mega sus that the girl's dad also vanished thanks to the religion. Right then, the mom tells the kid to save his magic, super grateful for the temporary chill vibes he brought. Getting comfy on the bed, the lady says thanks for the backup and properly introduces herself as Iris. Keeping his cover intact, the MC politely shoots back that his name is Lanyan. Paying close attention, the Spirit King spots a major red flag. This lady has zero trace of mana. Shocked by his buddy's find, the kid finally gets why his healing magic got blocked at the door. While the victim deals with her glowing leg, the bird drops the bomb that her body is already packed with someone else's energy. Staring at the creature, the MC cooks up a dark theory that this test isn't a sickness but some totally artificial science project. Chilling in the dim light, he hears the spirit agree on how heavy the situation is, since her original body flow got totally wrecked. The legendary bird flat out confirms that this kind of spiritual energy would never just naturally set up camp in there. Hooked on the mystery, the kid wonders why anyone would pull such a shady move on the locals. The sound of the door busting open cuts his thoughts off, making him look right at the entrance. Looking super stressed, Inuk pops in to give a heads up that the Order's monks are downstairs hunting for the mage. On the stairs, Edward loses his cool with the Crashers, demanding they take off those weird masks and bounce. One of the hooded dudes barks at the mercs to move, but the warrior threatens to snap his wrists, so he can't pray anymore. Totally ignoring the tough talk, the religious guy looks up and announces the head honcho wants FaceTime with the out-of-towner. Cruising down the stairs super chill, the MC remembers the high priest did promise to spill some major tea in person. Sniffing a trap, the merc steps up and tells his buddy to head back to the room, totally taking the heat himself. But the MC ignores his bro and asks the religious guards to lead the way. The warrior is totally shook watching the kid just surrender like it's no big deal. Under the sunset, the mage takes a walk with his escort through the paved streets, while his buddy watches like a hawk from the inn door. Staring at the massive church from a distance, the kid mentally tags his partner to scan the area, since spy magic is a no-go there. Complaining that this is grunt work, the bird takes off toward the cathedral towers. Hitting the destination, the kid pushes open the massive doors to the main hall to face the music. All alone in the giant church hall, he links the missing persons to the current mess, 100% sure the religious order is the bad guy here. Feeling the totally crushing vibes of the room, the kid gets stressed noticing his connection with the spirit is dropping fast. Chilling at the altar, the religious boss says, "Thanks for coming," and finally drops his real title, Wind Mage. Acting super extra, the long-haired dude gets up from his fancy chair. Dripping with fake charm, the priest claims it's a huge honor to chill with the only human who ever signed a deal with the Spirit King. Staying on his toes, the MC watches from afar and sarcastically points out the host sure knows a lot about mages. Keeping it real, the out-of-towner flat out says he only risked this meetup because he had a major question to drop. The sound of the kid's heavy steps echoes in the hall as he closes the gap, grabbing the priest's attention. With eyes full of rage, the kid glares at the dude and demands to know if he's the one who cooked up the glitch attacking the town. Escott quickly looks away, staying creepily calm in the face of getting called out. Getting up close to the kid, the antagonist drops a major plot twist. Besides being the high priest, he also moonlights as a light mage. The MC's eyes go wide, totally frozen by the wild reveal. Not caring about the kid's shock, the religious guy brings up how the hero always stood up for people and asks if he ever really thought about the big picture. Pacing around the dim room, the guy rants about why magic users always get stuck being society's underdogs. His speech drags up a brutal past, bringing up how less humans always hunted and took out casters just because they were spooked. The harsh irony is that even after so much tragedy, humanity always comes crawling back for magic help when things hit the fan. The villain's shadow looms on the wall as he trashes this broken system, where regular folks boss around the top-tier players. Staring right into the crazy, the kid asks if these unhinged ideas are what's turning innocent folks into rocks. Smirking like a total psycho, the priest claims the victims aren't gone, they're just on a VIP mission they should be thankful for. Doing a whole theatrical hand gesture, he hypes up his master plan to permanently fix this totally unfair social ladder. Totally drinking his own Kool-Aid, Escott claims there's zero room for non-magic humans in his flawless new world. The MC looks absolutely horrified, having a hard time wrapping his head around the insane trash he's hearing. Glaring at the weird crystal statue, the hero tries to figure out if this crazy mission came straight from the church's main HQ. Putting his hands together like he's praying, the extremist admits upper management still doesn't get his big brain vision. But he's totally sure the other bosses will jump on the bandwagon once he clears the lobby using the divine test. The bad guy's mind projector shows a bunch of glowing spots, bragging that hardcore mages are already backing him up all over the map. Reaching out with a super sketchy invite, the priest begs the MC to join his server wipe mission. Dips his head, hiding his massive anger under the hood before dropping an answer. Whipping out a hand-drawn sketch, the kid demands to know if Clean Haze is part of this toxic fan club. The religious boss stares blankly at the drawing for a second, shook that the out-of-towner is targeting this guy. Turning around, the priest claims that even though he and the captain started in the same lobby, their endgame goals are totally different. Sick of the riddles, the MC revs up his green aura, while the villain announces the friendly chat is officially over. But the kid's magic starts glitching hard right in the palm of his hand. Totally thrown off, the kid tries to force start the energy, only to realize his mana is straight up going on strike. A quick flashback MC making him second guess that heavy pressure he felt walking in. The last of his magic fizzles out, leaving him with zero armor. Worse than being out of mana, he notices his spirit buddy's holy connection is completely gone. Spotting the guest's panic, the host brags that this room is the most VIP holy spot in his whole religion. Flashing a massive winner's smile, the boss welcomes him to his private prayer zone. He proudly flexes that the whole room's setup was maxed to completely cancel out any magic energy. The room's debuff is absolute, no mob or player can use skills when the divine word is in the house. Starts sweating cold, freaked out to learn someone actually crafted a cage that turns off magic. Riding high on his advantage, the high priest takes a step toward his trap target. Trolling hard, the extremist admits he was super hyped to meet the dude who totally deleted the Ratville base. Doing a dramatic chest touch, he claims he's basically floating on cloud 9 now that he finally bagged the famous Wind Mage. Outside, things are going totally sideways with crystallized statues popping up all over the town square. Checking the view from his fancy window, Escott admits he knew exactly who the kid was the second they bumped into each other. Bursting with pride, the religious boss claims he found the ultimate duo partner to carry his massive project. Without missing a beat, he grabs the kid's hand with a super aggressive handshake to assert dominance. The priest goes full control freak, declaring the out-of-towner is a mandatory pick for this holy run. Creeped out by the audacity, the MC violently yanks his hand back and creates some space. He throws it right back in the crazy dude's face that this is all bananas and demands to know his real link to Clean Haze. Trying to play it cool, the long-haired guy offers to do a recap in case he wasn't clear enough. He firmly points out that the guy the kid is hunting has a completely different role in his master plan. Done playing games, the MC charges the bad guy to beat the truth out of him. Right then, a super fast shadow zooms through the room, putting out the altar candle in a split second. Several masked fanatics pop out of the shadows at once, boxing the kid in and blocking all the exits. Far away from that indoor brawl, the night is super chill on the empty streets of Gred Hill. Lugging a crate of apples, Edward catches the locals whispering sketchy stuff by the stone road. The warrior pauses, trying super hard to figure out what the bummed out crowd is gossiping about. He keeps walking, totally realizing the church squad must have some seriously dark side quest going on to cause all this drama. Thinking a few steps ahead, the merc flirts with the idea of just ghosting back to his guild and dropping the quest. Up ahead, the religious guys are promising the locals that the high priest will basically spam prayers for them. A little old lady bows down like she's super thankful, hyping up the so-called Buff the Big Boss is dropping on the injured. Watching the brainwashing from a distance, the warrior wonders what kind of fresh fake news they're pushing now. Walking into the inn a second later, he unceremoniously dumps the heavy wooden crate on the table. Totally surprised, young Inok walks up and asks why he hauled in a massive grocery haul all at once. She says thanks for the good vibes, but the big guy grumbles he only brought the snacks because he couldn't stand watching them eat plain bread anymore. Casually munching on an apple, he brings up the weird way the monks are acting outside, claiming they're doing some town tour. Instantly, both girls' eyes go wide, going into full panic mode over the Murky's update. The girl's mom nervously explains that this is the church's official sweep to lock up anyone tagged by the test. Suddenly, the sound of super heavy, scary boots echoes right outside the building. Freaking out, Inuk hugs her mom super tight and warns that the scary monks probably just showed up to haul them away. With zero chill, the wooden door gets kicked wide open, scaring the living daylights out of everyone inside. The religious dudes block the exit and coldly announce they're doing a wellness check to see if anyone needs the big guy's help. The extremists stomp into the inn looking like a boss fight, while Edward just leans on the counter watching the show. The creepy squad circles the women in the middle of the room, totally cutting off any escape routes. Flashing a psycho smile, the boss reaches into his robe to pull out a VIP badge. He holds up a shiny chunk of crystal, flexing that the piece is basically the high priest's ultimate say. So, immediately, the owner's messed up leg syncs with the item and starts glowing like a neon sign in the dark room. The fanatic watches the magic pop off on the lady's leg, locking in his worst suspicions. The girl starts sweating buckets, realizing her family's darkest secret just got leaked. She figures out in her head that the gadget works like a magic GPS to sniff out the sick folks. Squeezing her hands together, the lady braces herself for an instant, hardcore punishment right then and there. Loving the fear vibes, the hooded guy sadistically asks why they're shaking so much. Using his best scary voice, he trolls them saying they look like sinners about to get roasted in the divine review. Stepping closer to the victim, the extremist tells the lady to chill, claiming there's no need to sweat the inevitable. Completely shook, the owner gets told that the church boss will graciously soak up all her pain. This toxic mental game, Edward steps up and grabs the religious guy's wrist with crazy force. Twisting the dude's arm until it hurts, the warrior listens to the monk scream about how dare he mess with the order. The merc totally mocks the fanatic, sarcastically dropping that he's gonna wipe the floor with all of them in Goddess Ernia's name. With zero hesitation, he drops a devastating kick that sends the head monk flying across the room. Hurt from the launch, the extremist screams at his lackeys to jump the attacker immediately. The other monks blindly rush the warrior, while the women try to back away from the total brawl. In the middle of the massive tavern fight, the girl trips and eats it on the wooden floor. Using the chaotic team fight as cover, one of the religious dudes grabs the girl's mom's arm super rough. The warrior gets absolutely furious at the cheap shot and starts trash, talking the whole squad of unhinged weirdos. Flexing pure muscle, he pulls out his massive metal weapon, slicing right through the inn's air. The swing smashes the ground with insane weight, cracking the floorboards and sending a shockwave at the bad guys. The monk grabbing the lady gets totally wrecked by the blast and lets out a massive yell. Taking a deep breath after the chaos, the merc stands like an absolute unit surrounded by knocked-out fanatics. Sitting in the corner with her glowing debuff, the lady bawls her eyes out and admits out loud that she totally caught the curse. The story cuts back to the underground dungeon, where the MC is still looking down, soaking in all the toxic lore he just heard. The Towner shoots a look of pure ice as he takes in the deep, rooted evil of this basement. Completely out of mana, the kid got styled on and is now chained to a massive stone chair. The background shows some seriously twisted architecture, built entirely out of the folks who turned to stone. Totally mind blown, the MC looks up, catching the insane scale of the evil trapped in those walls. Furious, he demands to know if all those rock sculptures are actually the totally innocent locals from Gred Hill. Acting super smug and unbothered, Escott promises the locals didn't pass away, they just got drafted for a top-tier mission. Scanning the cave packed with victims, the bad guy flexes that it's impossible to count how many souls joined his holy server. Sick of the priest's crazy talk, the kid pulls on his restraints, trying desperately to break out. The clanking of the thick metal chains echoes as they rattle on the wrists of the struggling kid. He uses his whole body weight against the locks, making it super clear he's not going to AFK without a fight. Watching the kid waste his stamina, the church boss grandly announces that these victims make up God's ultimate raid team. Casually snacking at the table, the extremist explains their whole job is to delete anyone without magic from the map. Taking a fancy bite of food, he tops it off by saying the statues are just chilling on standby, waiting for the signal to attack. Boiling with rage over the zero empathy, the mage whispers the villain's name with super heavy, toxic vibes. He calls out the priest, asking if the endgame plan is literally wiping out absolutely every regular human in the zone. Slamming his silverware down, the host corrects him, claiming elimination is totally the wrong word for his masterpiece. Flashing a creepy, proud smirk, the fanatic declares the village is going to be his cult's very first VIP paradise. Getting back to the heavy chat, the MC furiously demands to know the totally garbage reason why the kids in Ratvile went down. Slicing a weird piece of meat, Escott calls the mage by his fake name and asks if he knows a very specific creepypasta. The priest drops the messed up lore that eating a rookie mage's heart gives a regular human magic powers. Hearing something so utterly gross, the MC's eyes go dark with rage, instantly linking that story to his own massive trauma. Miles away, the stress at the inn spikes when the religious guys grab the owner, because of her crystal glitch. The cult leader yells to carry the lady out ASAP, but gets blindsided by Edward's epic sneak attack. No hesitation, the merc lands a totally devastating punch right in the middle of the monk's face. Thanks to the massive hit, the opponent gets launched across the room. Stepping up to body, block for the victims, the dude takes a totally boss-fighting stance against the squad. Taking his shot, he rushes in and lands a totally brutal combo on another crasher before the guy can even block. Spooked by the sudden aggro, another religious guy backs up in a panic, screaming that the big guy is absolutely unhinged. But the merc grabs the dude's robe, shutting down any chance of a rage quit. With a super angry throw, he slams the enemy into the wooden floor with a move that totally wrecks him. In a flash, the room fills with dust from the brawl, while the fanatics groan on the busted floorboards. Letting out a deep sigh, the warrior checks out the absolute mess he made, shaking out his arms. The massive noise brings in the local guards, who run in pointing their spears and asking what the heck is going on. Moving fast, the soldiers box the merc in, threatening him with the pointy ends and telling him to freeze. Meanwhile, the monks are still rolling around in pain on the rustic tavern floor. Super beat up, one of the religious guys points at Iris and screams for the guards to haul her away instantly. Cornered, the lady drops her gaze looking totally crushed, getting called out as a sinner for hiding the glitch. Staring at the spears, Edward clenches his fists and complains this forgotten town has turned into an absolute circus. He quickly remembers his guild leader's strict warning to keep things low, key during the gig. Deciding to totally ignore the advice, the warrior cracks his knuckles and figures it's too late to back out, admitting he always gets the trash route. Taking a confident step forward, he invites the whole squad to throw down, admitting he was bored anyway. Super mad at the disrespect, the monk boss orders the soldiers to bag the warrior along with the sick lady. Screaming his lungs out, the fanatic demands the merc gets VIP escort straight to the church's main base. One guard questions the weird request, asking why they aren't just sending the brawler to the regular jail. Cuffing on the floorboards, the religious guy explains the crasher hurt holy vice, so the order is handling the bane themselves. Hearing where the jail is, the warrior instantly stops fighting back, locking onto the name of the HQ. His eyes light up like he just found an exploit, realizing this free ride is exactly what he needs for his undercover mission. A look of pure hype crosses Edward's face, thinking it's awesome he scored a free pass right to the center of the enemy base. Flipping his mood like a switch, he yells that it's all good and puts his hands up, totally confusing the guards. In a super good mood, the merc lets the squad cuff him without throwing a single punch. Dragged outside, the two captives march into the freezing night with spears poking their backs. A guard ties Iris's wrists with super thick rope, treating her like she's a massive threat. Looking back, the lady calls her daughter's name, looking absolutely heartbroken and stressed out. Enoch totally loses it, crying her eyes out watching her mom get dragged off like that. His hands tied up, Edward looks over his shoulder and nicely asks the kid not to be so bummed out. Dripping with confidence, he promises to stick to his original bet and bring both her parents back in one piece. Wiping her tears, the kid totally buys the merc's words and nods her head, scraping together whatever bravery she has left. The guards run the march, steering the prisoners through the sketchy alleys away from the inn. Total silence takes over the empty room, leaving the kid all alone in the dark of her own house. Back to the villain's dinner party. The priest admits the magic urban legend is a massive, goofy lie. Staring at Simon, the bad guy asks if the kid even knows how many miners lost their lives over this totally fake rumor. The church boss's flashback shows an absolute nightmare scenario, with innocents getting wiped out surrounded by fire and bad vibes. A creepy hand holds up the prize of that horror in the flames, proving how insane folks got over a fake myth. Looking at the old damage, Scott fake cries, claiming that remembering those tragedies still breaks his heart. Dropping the lore, the guy says the myth has a tiny bit of truth, since taking out the target actually gives the attacker a temporary mana boost. The MC listens to everything while locked in the hardware, as the bad guy adds that the energy buff works even if the target has 0 mana. Slicing his gross meal, the boss figures out that the jealousy of regular humans basically warped reality, since only magic users can actually absorb that buff. Pointing at the statues, the priest warns that the big boss upstairs has massive plans and charges an extremely high price to make it happen. Walking up to the chained kid, he coldly drops that the Ratville disaster was just the tutorial for building this utopia in Gred Hill. Out of nowhere, a massive golden aura explodes from the priest, who opens his arms asking if his endgame is clear now. With eyes burning with fanboy energy, the host drops one last invite, begging the kid to help launch the magic-only server. Outside, the stone front of the basic inn stays super quiet under the cloudy night sky. In the dark room, young Anok sits on the edge of the bed, totally zoning out on a little box in her hands. Super wholesome memories flood her brain, thinking about her dad's safe and cozy hugs. Clutching an old family pic, the girl whispers how much she misses him, trying to dig up the guts to face the boss fight. The flashback shows the exact moment her dad handed her that package, looking incredibly serious. Remembering the rules, she recalls the magic item was only supposed to be triggered to save a true VIP. Pumped with fresh motivation, Enoch jumps up, realizing it's officially time to step up. She runs to the dresser and pops the drawer to grab her dad's loot. Super fast, the kid pulls out the tiny blue crystal that's glowing like crazy in the dark room. Pressing the rock to her chest, the girl promises she won't just AFK and wait for the game over screen. Miles away, the church's massive HQ looks totally epic and terrifying against the gray sky. In the jail, the hero gets mega tilted, demanding to know if all those kids had to disappear for such a toxic, selfish reason. Raging out, Simon drops a massive yell and yanks the heavy metal chains with max stats. The kid's locked wrist flashes a weak light, proving he's trying to spam his magic, even inside the restricted zone. Tiny sparks of wind energy struggle to pop up, aggressively fighting against the Holy Room's debuff. The wide shot shows the prisoner pushing the chains to the absolute limit, while the bad guy just chills and watches. The stamina drain hits the mage hard, making him pant against the insane debuff of trying to cast in there. Ignoring the crazy HP drain, he pushes again, spawning a super glitchy green tornado around his locked body. Seeing the kid try hard, the cult boss sighs in his glowing aura and asks if this pointless rage quit is his final answer. The religious dude's face screams superiority as he watches the kid refuse to take the L. Explaining the cage, the extremist warns that the server turns mana into heavy gravity, meaning the more he spams skills, the harder the physical debuff hits. Scott looks totally hyped seeing the green magic taking shape in the trapped kid's hands. A thick, glowing orb of wind actually stabilizes in the hero's palm, totally fighting the room's heavy lag. Mind blown by the flex, the priest admits the pureness of that magic is terrifying, guessing he can't even scan the kid's real power level. Totally gassed out from the effort, the MC heavily breathes, noticing a major bug in his spell. The green light shines on the fanatic's face, exposing a greedy, psycho smile looking at that magic showcase. Super fast, the bad guy throws up a hand and starts siphoning the kid's spell straight into his own HP bar. All the green magic the hero busted his back to craft gets aggressively leached by the boss in the middle of the room. Soaking up the pure stats, the extremist eyes glow with a totally scary fresh power. Up. Feeling refreshed, he stands up and spawns massive crystal boulders, flexing his absolute admin control over the basement. Looking at the totally drained kid, the villain hypes up the spirit contractor class, joking that every mage is super salty over that build. Then he admits it's super tough to solo command an army of stone folks, explaining that the skill drains a ton of mana. Staring at his own hand packed with stolen loot, the priest is super hyped about how top tier that life energy feels. Flexing a massive light aura, Scott announces the chill vibes are over, bummed he has to get toxic since the hero rejected his guild invite. Stressed under the debuff, the kid realizes he's never met an enemy who could just cancel and steal someone else's stats in such a sick way. The kid's brain goes into overdrive as he watches the boss step back, guessing the rest of the cult's mages probably abuse this dirty exploit too. Panicking, he wonders if Clean Haste is the actual final boss of this crazy setup, but quickly realizes there's zero time to search that right now. Only caring about surviving, the hero pushes the heavy cuffs, trying to figure out a fast travel out of this stone chair. Across the room, the priest is vibing like a maniac, completely obsessed with the shiny power he keeps spamming. Thanks to the extreme magic pressure, the dungeon's crystal pillars suddenly start cracking, shooting sharp shrapnel everywhere. Gritting his teeth, the MC promises himself he's gonna break out of this cage no matter the cost. Far from there, dust drops from the ceiling of another dark jail, proving that zone is also getting hit by heavy lag spikes. Feeling the floor shake, Edward compares the glitch to an earthquake and asks if it wouldn't be a big brain move to dip out immediately. Checking out how thick the bars are, the merc finds it super sus that a church runs a high-security prison right under the town. Chained to some rusty hardware, the warrior jokes if the religious guys run secret torture streams in the basement for fun. Trying to keep the chat super casual, he tries to bait the guard, but the NPC just ignores him completely. Taking the hint, the merc thinks about how he totally hacked his way into the enemy base, but now he's stuck not knowing where the medical wing is. Out of nowhere, a tiny item drops onto the stone floor right behind him, breaking the awkward silence with a click. Not even sweating the noise right away, the warrior figures his gamer sense is pointing to an even more VIP level hidden in the base. But when he finally checks the movement in the dark, the dude's eyes pop out of his head, totally shook by who just spawned. Hiding super shyly behind a wooden beam, Enoch just pops up, making the warrior think he's hallucinating her in this massive mess. Flabbergasted by the crazy play, the warrior mentally asks how a literal kid managed to stealth into a zone this locked down by the order. Stressed by the merca's loud reaction, the girl puts a finger to her lips begging for absolute mute mode so they don't aggro the hall guard. Sweating cold over the misplay, the warrior knows he has to act fast to fix the glitch and trick the religious dude. Using his best acting chops, the chained prisoner fakes a massive puking fit with loud groans, instantly pulling the guard's aggro. Totally thrown off by the dude's debuff, the monk steps up to the cell while the kid sneaks through the blind spot like a ninja. To make sure the bait works, Edward cranks up the coughing and weird noises, keeping the guard totally fixated on him. Capitalizing on the perfect distraction, the girl carefully reaches her hand toward the keys left on the basic desk. Heart pounding and shaking from the risky play, Enoch pauses for a split second before swiping the loot. With a super clean, pro gamer move, she snags the metal keys and pulls them back without making a single clink. Safe in the shadows, the kid mentally celebrates her flawless stealth run, flashing a massive, relieved smile. But the chill vibes last like 0 seconds as the warrior screams her name in absolute terror, totally losing his mind. The run completely tanks when another fanatic jumps out of the shadows and yanks the girl by the neck super hard, tossing the keys across the room. Scene swaps back to the crystal cage, where the MC keeps pushing his limits against the chains, sweating buckets non-stop. Even getting crushed by the trap that totally nerfs his stats, balls of green mana keep stubbornly popping up around the hero. Watching from the high ground, the priest trashes the pointless try-harding, darkly warning that mana exhaustion is going to permanently log him out soon. While the kid sweats to keep the wind going, the bad guy gets close, hyping up how insanely pure that spiritual energy is. 0 effort, the order boss once again leeches all the magic the kid spawned, dropping a super creepy sigh of relief. The massive overdose of stolen HP makes the priest's gold aura explode, lighting up the whole rocky dungeon. Cowling the prisoner by his fake username, Escott coldly announces that the second the kid meets his end right there, the mission is wrapped forever. Staring straight into the enemy's eyes, the mage gets hit with the fake promise that if he joins the church's guild, his stats will go through the roof. Totally sure he broke the kid's mental, the villain turns and starts walking upstairs, promising to come back after the event drops. Pushed to absolute 0 stamina, fat drops of damage leak from the beaten mage's wounds, making a totally sad mess on the cold floor. Super beat up and on 0 battery, the kid stays locked tight to the sacrifice chair, tanking the awful pain of chains digging into his character model. Stubbornly trying to cast another useless wind blast, he sadly realizes he just keeps wiping against this room's busted mechanics. Checking out the thick binds, the MC figures out the hardware is leeching his HP directly, making the debuff way worse every time he tries to cast. With 0 options left and his HP dropping fast, he drops his head, cursing his low level and wondering how to glitch out of this punishment. Scraping together the last drop of mana, the kid focuses his power again, right when a flashback of his late uncle pops up begging him to be brave. The cozy memory shows the super upbeat kid from back in the day happily asking if the cool merc would brag about his stats to his dad. Rosette flashes a warm, confident smile in that cutscene, promising the captain would be crazy proud of his kid's spirit magic. But the sweet memory gets totally nuked by the terrifying shot of the family house getting wrecked by a massive fire, muting the little guy's screams. The nightmare gets totally ruthless, showing the loving uncle getting taken out in a super toxic, brutal way that same night. The massive, evil boss version of Clean Heis stands perfectly fine in the middle of the flames, holding the proof of the foul play while everything turns to ash. Flashing back to right before the fatal hit, the kid cries his eyes out asking his dad why he's killing his own squad. Looking totally dead inside and monstrous, the executioner Chili claims he's just following the king's patch notes, telling his scared kid to go do something useful. Overflowing with massive rage over the betrayal, the raidhead mom charges through the fire holding a sword to face the villain. But the mom's desperate aggro pull gets shut down in a totally humiliating and brutal way, silencing the young MC's scared warning shout. Tears stream down the totally stunned kid's face, going into full shock watching his favorite people get wiped out. Super busted up and out of stamina from the Riggs fight, the uncle bravely tanks the aggro and tells his little nephew to sprint far away. Screaming with his throat burning from the smoke, the dude demands the kid instantly escape the burning base to save his own file. But the Guardian's sacrifice totally flops, since the captain lands a totally cheap shot on his back, completely deleting his defense. Walking over the totally toxic mess in the fire, the bad guy's dark shadow gets closer to his kid without a single drop of guilt. Staring at his own kid with a completely psycho look, the villain reaches out his rough hand and demands to rip the kid's heart out. The absolute worst pain of that trauma makes the hero snap awake in the dungeon, sweating bullets while massive rage floods his brain. Dumping years of salty rage into a massive burst of raw stats, the kid ignores the magic ban and spawns a ton of green lasers flashing through the chains. Getting into a super aggressive stance with his teeth totally clenched, the mage yanks the chair's restraints, promising himself he absolutely refuses to get a game over here. Even with zero stamina, the prisoner spawns that glowing wind magic in the dim room one more time. The exhaustion hits him like a truck, making him gasp when he realizes all this Harding might just bounce off the trap. Staring at the ceiling, a random big brain idea pops into his head, unlocking a brand new strat to break out of jail. Right then, the camera cuts to the dark prison where young Anach's panicked scream echoes through the freezing halls. The kid wiggles non-stop while getting grabbed by one of the religious dudes, furiously yelling him to back off. Struggling to keep the kid crowd controlled, the extremist asks in total disbelief how she even hacked her way into the restricted floor. Locked in his cell, the merc yells out in full rage telling them to drop the kid, roasting them about whether this toxic bullying is what their goddess is all about. Looking at the locked-up warrior, the kid remembers her dad's tip about only popping the stone to protect a VP. Summoning all her guts, she pulls the crystal from her pocket and screams the guy's name, leaving the religious dudes totally bamboozled. Pure silence takes over the creepy hallway while the church guards stare at the girl, totally clueless about what her next move is. Super stressed, the girl fights to shake off the monk and spams the warrior's name over and over, begging for an assist. Caught off guard by the hard yank, the fanatic accidentally drops the girl, who loses her balance and face plants on the stone floor. Thanks to the rough landing, the magic charm slips out of her grip and smashes against the floor with a high-pitched ping. Instantly, the rock reacts to the hit and starts throwing off an insanely bright, pulsating glow. A massive magic shockwave floods the zone, blinding the whole corridor with a crazy bright flash. Miles away, inside the main church, Escott's voice booms over the speakers claiming the crowd's pain is just a temporary debuff. A bunch of terrified NPCs huddle together in the holy room, whispering prayers while trying not to lose their minds. Wrapped in his gold aura, the boss calmly promises that the server will balance out right after the scary part ends. Throwing his arms up, he announces the damage over time will stop and everyone will hit max level in this temple. In his hands, the bad guy clutches the pieces of the mystic rock that's causing the town's glitch. The crowd is completely shook when the tags on their bodies start glowing violently like a totally broken mod. In a moment of pure nightmare fuel, the magic totally bugs out and massive rocks start sprouting out of the locals who scream in agony. Watching his own fan club suffer, the priest just hypes up the deity, totally ghosting their cries for a healer. Panic totally takes over the church while the victims thrash around, feeling their avatars get monstrously swallowed by blue rocks. A terrifying glitch hits the crowd, transforming the innocent NPCs into gnarly crystal beasts right inside the lobby. Lit up by the massive fail, the high priest throws his hands up feeling an absolute, godly hype. The guy's face is locked in a totally sick chill vibe, 100% sure his massive griefing is the actual save file. Staring at the busted statue of the goddess, he prays super hard to get fast travel to his epic endgame. In the middle of the wrecked lobby, tons of sharp crystal chunks are scattered all over the floor. Out of nowhere, the heavy metal sound of massive chains snapping echoes like a boss warning in the shadows. Back in the dungeon, the hero spams a ridiculous amount of energy, spawning a massive tornado right around the chair. Sweating cold, he realizes the trap absorbs all dropped magic and converts it into brutal physical debuffs. Staring at the red crystal on the ceiling gear, the kid figures out that reversing the mana flow might just fry the whole server. Gritting his teeth through the massive drain, the kid risks the machine exploding in his face, since just camping there means an automatic game over anyway. With total focus, he aims to make sure the energy hits the exact hitbox of the mechanism and not the AoE around it. If his math is trash, the hero's avatar will get totally wiped by the magic recoil and blow up in the middle of the green hurricane flooding the room. At the exact same time, in the middle of the church, the locals completely lose their minds as the rock glitch takes over. The victims get super cursed, warped faces, dropping monstrous roars that echo all over the cathedral. A massive mob of stone beasts spawns in, while the priest's voice claims the chill followers are gonna get epic loot. Checking out his sketchy new army from the balcony, Escott is super hyped that the event has officially started. Wiggling his fingers like he's on a controller, the bad guy decides to push the payload before even Chen, checking if the trapped mage accepted his party invite. Following the macro, one of the crystal monsters sticks its arm out in a super stiff, creepy animation. Taking the wheel of that massive DPS, the fanatic announces that phase 1 of his master plan is a go. The villain's gold light touches the beasts, making a spicy magic overflow from them. Hyped on pure stats, one monster roars super loud, shooting straight up light out of its mouth and eyes. The boss's shadow pops in the flash, watching his cursed mods come alive in the temple. Flexing his own toxic build, he dubs these creatures God's true squad, commanding them to follow the ultimate macro. Right away, one of the crystal beasts aggressively charges, its eyes glowing red while it drops a super dangerous aggro roar. In another corner of the giant church, a huge, dead quiet hallway hides the cult's most toxic secrets. The innkeeper sprints out of breath through the dark, trying to dodge the absolute bad ending chasing her. Running barefoot on the freezing floor, the lady ignores her low HP and frantically searches for an exit route. Freezing in the shadows, Iris breathes heavy and wonders totally lost which way to even run. Things get super sweaty in the underground cell when massive green blades start slicing the wind at max speed. The hero gets swallowed by a totally chaotic blender of wind and lightning, testing if his own character model can tank the dungeon security system. Taking massive damage, the kid drops a painful groan while enduring the totally broken pressure of the spell. Pushing max stats pays off, dropping a deep crack into the thick chains locking his arms down. Stacks into a colossal ball of light spinning non-stop right around the kid. The MC screams with his lungs on fire, making his spirit's glow leak right out of his eyes as he overclocks the magic. Tasting copper in his mouth, he confirms his crazy strat to crash the system is following the exact risky path he drafted. The reverse flow hits the hard cap, causing an internal pressure so insane that the mage's physical model is literally on the verge of popping. He realizes that if he drops the DPS, the room will just eat the energy, so he has to perfectly balance his raw stats against the hardware. The overkill pressure hits the absolute limit the metal can tank, and the massive structures start crumbling with super loud sound effects. The hero notices his totally YOLO strat is actually working and begs for just a couple more seconds of lag. Unable to tank the storm, the thick mechanism completely fails the vibe check and aggressively explodes through the ceiling. The hurricane spins like crazy on the chair, while the kid tries his absolute hardest to finish the jailbreak. Outside, the massive church drops a super weird red flash while terrifying screams echo all over town. Panic totally eats the city as stressed out folks trip over the downed NPCs in a zone of pure chaos. Running on pure aggro, the crystal monsters push forward like a bulldozer, sparking total chaos and wiping out the crowd. The terrified locals run from the monster raid, spamming requests for backup while trying to keep the kids safe. Totally ignoring the server crash, one monk just stays on his knees in the dark, begging the followers to tank the test and level up. Pinned by a rock monster, the religious dude prays, claiming the high priest is totally gonna carry him through this raid. But the fake copium doesn't save him, and the beast lands a critical hit, instantly deleting the follower's file. The extremist mask shatters on the floor, becoming the salty proof that his boss totally threw the match. In the middle of the mess, Inach's mom keeps up her sweaty sprint through one of the HQ's massive hallways. Hearing creepy footsteps right behind her, the lady looks back totally stunned, locked by pure terror. The chase hits the final boss phase when a statue drops a high-pitched roar right at her back. Spooked by how fast it's closing the gap, she trips and wipes out on the hard floor of the giant dark room. The creature pushes with zero chill, making the victim frantically crawl in a totally useless attempt to dodge the hit. Convinced her run is over, the mom turns her head and calls her daughter's name as a final cry for a carry. With zero escape, the lady eats a super cheap shot to the back, dropping a scream of pain that bounces around the hall. In a spot way down the same hallway, two characters step out of the shadows, freezing when they spot the totally unfair play. The kid recognizes her downed mom and calls out with a super shaky voice because of the shock. Panicking, the girl tries to rush in, but the warrior totally grabs her tight while she cries a river. Edward is totally shook by how insane the map looks and wonders what kind of busted nightmare mob that is. Noticing the new targets, the crystallized beast slowly turns around and drops another super scary roar. The perspective snaps back to the mage's cell, where the heavy magic chains finally start snapping for real. The hardware that had the kid locked down totally crashes, shooting metal pieces all over the lobby. Totally off the leash, the kid just pants in the middle of the wreckage after burning all his stamina. The silence gets broken by a familiar voice, dropping a lecture and calling the kid an absolute madman for almost deleting his own account again. Spirit Elkine flies down, giving instant chill vibes to the mage, who drops the bird's name. Flopped on the floor and holding the bird, the kid asks if the pet is good, but the bird claps back that the kid should really check his own HP bar. The legendary bird drops that he knew something was super sus when their connection cut out, noticing the hero was totally out of gas. The kid agrees with the take, admitting he got totally outplayed by the bad guy's random traps. He struggles to stand up, saying they gotta gank the priest right now, but stumbles from the damage and gets another earful for ignoring his limits. Out of nowhere, the blue bird goes into full alert mode, picking up a super toxic energy taking over the map. The Spirit King drops the warning that a massive disaster just queued up, leaving the hero mega stressed. Breaking down the patch notes, Elkine says all the mana in town is glitching out at the exact same time. Connecting the dots, Simon realizes Ascut just started the server wipe against the NPCs, and the test was just the beta phase. Huge burst of gold light floods the dungeon, flashing the sudden spawn of the final boss. The MC turns around totally shook and comes face to face with the cult boss chilling on the stairs. Strutting with super creepy chill vibes, the extremist claims today is an absolute win for the Order. Dripping with sarcasm, he admits it's totally epic to bump into the Spirit King during such a massive event. Boiling with rage over the disrespect, the kid screams the villain's name like an absolute threat. The Spirit complains he finally gets what was lagging the radar earlier, calling out the absolutely trash smell of those beasts. The hallway gets flooded by scary crystal mobs right behind Escott, making Elkine warn that the lobby is totally griefed. The mob of statues pushes with zero mercy, dropping weird sound effects as they fill up the zone. Realizes with total shock that those beasts are actually the innocent NPCs who got the stone debuff. With insane rage, he screams asking what the heck the dude did to those poor randoms. Keeping his fake holy act up, the priest coldly shoots back that he merely gifted premium vision to those with zero mana. Looking at the monster squad, the fanatic hypes up the nightmare as a beautiful reboot, where humans finally install the perfect update. Holding his hand out again, Escott drops his final party invite, demanding the hero team up and buff the army. Trashing the crazy offer, the kid spawns the green wind, telling the villain to shut his mouth and promising to end this run right now. The high priest just watches the pushback with a totally cold look of disappointment. Without missing a beat, he throws his arm up and declares it's officially time to drop the ban hammer. Following the ping, the monsters roar like crazy and rush straight at the prisoner. Suffering from massive stamina drain, Simon takes a step back, struggling to keep his magic online. He realizes with pure panic that trying to solo a massive mob wave with 1 HP is going to be literally impossible. Faking surprise, the religious boss drops a super toxic emote over his opponent's low stats. Out of nowhere, a magic skill shot blasts into the room, but the fanatic notices the attack totally whiffed. The beasts freeze their push and look back, totally bamboozled by the random bait. Escott calmly explains he'd never make the noob mistake of trying to one the Spirit King head-on. The crystal mobs just wait their AFK, completely hard locked to their admin's commands. The villain keeps streaming his unhinged podcast, swearing that only the vanilla NPCs need to get wiped from the lore. He decrees that the lesser humans who didn't unlock the crystal skin will get trashed with zero regrets. Looking at the kid like he's absolute trash, the priest repeats there's still time to undo his choice and accept the trade. Totally ghosting the rant, the hero boosts his avatar using a massive green dash and perfectly escapes the zone. Shook by the disrespect, the Order boss calls the out-of-towner a complete psycho, watching him barely dodge the wipe. Flying straight up, Elkine warns that taking a boss fight against the fanatic right now is a total throw. The spirit warns that if they don't speedrun this, the whole server is going to get deleted by the crystal mob. The kid's super jump literally breaks the dungeon ceiling, glitching right through to the outside with a massive bang. The story snaps back to the HQ halls, where Edward is sweating buckets trying to track down the missing kid. Dropping her stealth, Enoch pops out complaining the merc almost gave her a literal heart attack. The girl totally flexes that she was an epic support, joking that the warrior should cut his fee for her super risky carry. Flabbergasted, the warrior asks how she knows the map of such a secret zone, calling her move a massive throw of common sense. Flashing a troll smile, the kid drops that she used to explore these secret tunnels for fun. The merc is totally blown away by her map awareness, but she reminds him they're literally inside the religion's main hub. She drops the lore that back in the day, she thought her mom's job was totally mid and preferred tagging along with her dad to the HQ. Checking the corners slowly, she remembers this place used to be super chill with zero restricted zones. Laughing, the young girl admits she used to glitch into VIP areas just for the thrills, making the warrior call her a total menace. Showing off the glowing loot, Enoch spills that her dad, an actual mage, crafted it right before he went missing. Connecting the lore, Edward guesses the guy is probably locked up in the same base and asks the kid to be the nav. Super locked in, the kid promises to carry her parents out using her own stats and guts. But her hype instantly crashes the second she spots her down mom, sprinting to her while the warrior spams the caution ping. The absolute unit starts sweating, locking eyes with the terrifying mob that just blocked their lane. Shook by the level of absurd, he asks what kind of totally cursed nightmare this church installed. The cursed statue drops a rage roar and wins up for an instant kill attack. With insane reaction speed, the warrior yanks the girl backward, pulling both of them out of the monster's hitbox. Punishing the cooldown, he uses his own metal-plated arm to totally tank the creature's heavy punch. The massive clash forces a painful grunt out of the merc, who eats the absolute brutal damage of the attacker. Keeping the aggro high, the beast stays in a totally feral stance, ready to delete anyone trying to mess with the priest's run. The crystal mob drops another roar while spamming attacks on the merc. Thanks to the absolute unit's knockback, the warrior gets pushed backward, scraping his boots on the rocky floor. The beast ends up taking a step back right after, dropping a super clunky, glitchy grunt. Edward holds his ground and trolls the mob, claiming its hitbox is ridiculously tanky. Using the window, Enoch sprints in full panic toward her mom, who's logged out on the floor. The kid wraps the lady in a massive hug, crying a river and begging her to respawn. The innkeeper gasps with extreme effort, proving she's still hanging on with 1 HP. Watching from the backline, the warrior is super relieved she's breathing, but admits her damage looks totally sketchy. Keeping his eyes locked on the boss, he tells the kid to fast, travel out with her mom while he holds the line. The girl totally panics, knowing raw physical damage is garbage against the statue, and secretly prays for the mage to swoop in for a carry. Suddenly, the wounded mom wakes up with a weak cuff right in the girl's lap. Hyped up with a brand new buff of courage, the kid yells to grab the merc's attention. She sprints down the lane claiming she's got a big brain strat and begs him to tank just a little longer. The warrior dodges a totally whiffed attack, wondering what kind of wild play she's gonna try now. Sprinting at max speed, Enoch guesses the only way to crack the monster's armor is by spamming magic. The kid full sprints through the sketchy hallway. Remembering the loot room she needs is right down that lane. She finally hits the waypoint and parks right in front of the door. The girl stares at the massive wooden doors, spotting the entrance to the church's magic crafting room. Pushing the door open super slow, she hopes to find any OP gear inside. But she gets massively scared when she spots someone moving inside the dark room. Enoch kinda blends into the wood, terrified of getting instantly banned. Peeking with max stealth, her eyes go wide at what's rendered on screen. A religious fanatic is running some sketchy setup wrapped in a weird energy, completely zoned in on the dark room. At the exact same time, the outside of the church is giving total horror game vibes under the moonlight. Locals are camping in the alleys, trying to outlive the nightmare patch dropped on the streets. The whole map is covered with NPCs who got brutally wrecked and camped by the monster wave. Watching the whole stream from the VIP seats, the High Priest flexes a look of pure hype, rating the total wipeout as an epic showcase. The bad guy throws his arms open at the wreckage, officially renaming the town as a totally blessed server. Out of nowhere, a massive green energy tornado rips through the sky like a total glitch. The insanely OP Wind Mage snipes one of the crystal beasts, launching it across the map. The storm keeps sweeping the zone, one-shotting a huge squad of monsters all at once. The out-of-towner respawns panning in the center of the chaos, holding a totally boss stance after the ultimate. Landing right behind him, the spirit bird drops a warning that spamming this power is going to permanently corrupt the hero's save file. Completely ghosting the bird, the dark Harem MC promises there's exactly one cheat code left to fix this totally broken run. The King of Wind stares at the kid, getting how insanely heavy this final choice is. The spirit entity looks visibly stressed about his user's totally unhinged strat. Standing in front of the wipeout, the mage locks in his stance while the pet tries to talk him out of it. Channeling an absolutely busted amount of energy, Simon drops the bird's real name and begs to borrow all its raw stats. The story cuts back to the creepy lab, showing a dark figure plugged into a bunch of cables on a chair. Enoch totally loses it, thinking she just found a deleted player in the middle of that weird hardware. Fighting off a panic attack, the girl takes a deep breath and focuses on finding any loot to save the warrior. Then a super distinct detail in a dark corner catches the kid's eye. She tilts her head, trying super hard to fix her render distance in the pitch black room. The young girl's heart totally freezes when she IDs the player trapped in there. Absolutely shook, she stares at her own dad, knocked out and chained to the orders machines. The girl whispers in total denial, straight up refusing to accept her favorite guy got nerfed like this. Staring at the heavy locks on his feet, she agonizes over what the heck the lore reason for this is. The emotional critical hit is so massive that the kid literally trips over her own feet and falls flat on her back. Flopped on the freezing floor, Enoch shakes stop trying to process the absolute tragedy. The kid's eyes are overflowing with max-level fear facing the plot twist. Tears glitch into her eyes while she pants, totally spooked by the new reality. At that exact second, she spots a super familiar little wooden box knocked over right next to her. Cutting back to the hallway brawl, Edward pops all his agility stats to dodge the beast's totally broken hitboxes. The monster smashes the ground like a meteor, shattering the floor with an absolute rattling sound effect. The merc rolls into cover, keeping his block up. With zero chill, the creature fires a totally busted beam of hard light straight at the dude. The OP spell blows up the wall behind him, spraying debris everywhere. Capitalizing on the cooldown window, the warrior jumps and charges a heavy attack with literally all his strength. The beast just casually parries the massive hit, popping a shockwave through the air. Thanks to the knockback, Edward gets launched, but manages to stick the superhero landing on his boots. Holding his damaged arm, the merc complains about the beast's literally impossible defense stats, knowing he absolutely cannot back out and ditch the lady. The monster's model pushes forward with major aggro, while the dude curses the fact he doesn't have his main weapon to finish this boss fight. Spotting Enoch running back, the absolute unit panics and orders her to hit the blindfold emote. A tiny gadget flies through the air, buzzing right past the crystal statue. Edward's eyes go wide, completely lost on what random play the kid just tried. He roasts the kid, calling her a total noob and pointing out her mom's hitbox is fully exposed right there. The mystery relic just hovers and starts glowing with insane max brightness. A massive flashbang of light blinds the whole zone, hitting the monster directly. The warrior super quickly throws his arms up to stop his eyes from getting totally fried. Once the flash fades, he checks the map and realizes there's literally zero extra environment damage. Confused, the dude drops his guard, realizing the loot definitely wasn't a frag grenade. The merc stares at the light show with a totally bamboozled look on his face. Zero patch notes explaining why, the beast's tanky model literally just crumbles into dust. Watching the glitch fix itself, Edward asks out loud what in the world just happened. Standing behind him, looking super bummed, Enoch spills that her dad actually knew the dark lore behind the statues and the real reason the NPCs were turning to stone. Holding the loot box, Enoch clears up that the mage literally crafted that item to try and patch the server wipe in town. The guy left a text file admitting he had some super heavy lore to drop before they opened the loot. He confessed in pure panic that he was the dev who accidentally coded the crystal virus hitting the city. The original roadmap for the research was to give magic buffs to regular humans, perfectly matching the church's marketing. But as the beta tests rolled on, the mage realized with absolute horror that the code was totally spaghetti and out of control. Stressed about permanently bricking everyone's files, he figured out he couldn't hit undo on the crystal corruption anymore. So, the absolute best hotfix he could drop was crafting a relic that works like an EMP, canceling out the room's magic for a few seconds. Even though it couldn't unstone the players who already crashed, the item totally stabilized the glitch and nerfed the innkeeper's damage over time. Seeing the lady breathe way easier, the warrior sarcastically notes that the debuff didn't delete her thanks to the crystal itself. He tells the kid to go camp safely with her mom, promising he'll solo the rest of this messy raid. The kid instantly rejects the carry. With a super try-hard look, she claims her dad was trying to carry the NPCs and promises to 100% complete his quest. The merc drops a low-key smile, totally respecting the absolute boss energy the kid is putting out. He instantly gets that the girl has the vibe of a player who will absolutely never hit the forfeit button. Helping her wounded mom up, the kid announces she'll be right back soon. The lady gives her kid a super sad look, while the dad's notes reveal the only reason he didn't join the toxic cult was because of his family. The text ended with a desperate SOS to ban the priest, and the duo speedruns through the dark tunnels. Way far away, the massive avatar of the Spirit King rips through the sky, totally making his world premiere in the physical server. The giant spirit boss asks if the kid even realizes what an absolute madman move he just pulled. The legendary bird drops the info that the kid probably just burned all his own HP just to rip the magic portal open. And the warning gets even more toxic, pointing out the debuffs from this insane strat have barely even started to load. Staring down at his human player, the boss asks if he's actually geared up to carry the absurd weight of all that raw energy. The MC heavily pants, struggling to even breathe under the absolutely crushing lag of the spell. But even running on literal fumes, the kid tilts his head up in the middle of the windstorm. Elkeen realizes the kid has the 1,000-yard stare of a dude whose save file got wiped but somehow kept his hype totally alive. From the VIP balcony, the High Priest spots the crazy weather update and gets actually spooked by the magic. He drops the hero's fake username, totally clueless about what kind of bug just happened. Watching the absolute nightmare hurricane dominating the map, the extremist wonders how the kid managed to spam such a massive ultimate. By the bad guy's math, the damaged prisoner shouldn't have even a single drop of mana left in his bar. But the shock instantly turns into pure, toxic rage when he sees the lobby change. Super tilted by the random glitch, the boss claims he doesn't get what kind of exploit the out-of-towner used to hide this buff. Pacing fast on the balcony, he decides he needs to instantly delete this new bug. Without a second thought, the priest commands his rock squad to stunlock the invader. Immediately, dozens of mobs violently jump in from all sides to gank the solo target. But the Wind Mage just stands there AFK in the shadows, waiting for the aggro to close the gap. With his eyes glowing like crazy, he shows an absolutely terrifying chill vibe against the push. In literally seconds, a massive blast of wind knocks them back with extreme prejudice. The kid responds in the eye of a colossal tornado, literally deleting the crystal beasts before they even touch his hitbox. The villain sweats cold and his eyes pop, totally flabbergasted at how easily his mob wave got farmed. Keeping the crazy damage up, the mage raises his hand and targets the absolute fury of the storm. A totally busted wave of green energy crashes right into the temple's foundation. The mob loot gets launched into the sky, totally vaporized by the spell's area of effect. Caught completely off guard by the blast, the priest himself gets launched backwards, screaming his lungs out. Dragging his avatar across the wrecked floor, he tries to compute why he'll let himself get jailed when he's secretly packing this much overpowered stats. Stepping out of the smoke, the mage pushes like a Terminator, and the fanatic realizes this magic is a 1-to-1 clone of a Spirit King's. Finally, the priest's brain stops lagging, figuring out that this buff definitely isn't from a vanilla human. A totally unhinged psycho smile pops on the bad guy's face when he IDs the actual source of the ultimate. Super hype, the enemy guesses the kid just temporarily borrowed the Spirit King's admin privileges. The cutscene where the hero begged for the bird's buff replays in the priest's head. In that split second of pure panic, the tiny spirit accepted the trade offer in the dark. The bird dropped a disclaimer that to spawn in the real world, it would have to literally hijack the kid's body as a router. The kid mashed the accept button instantly, knowing his current build couldn't naturally generate the mana his partner needed. The spirit entity gave a hardcore warning that human hardware could never overclock that much power and it would 100% brick his life file. The spirit asked how fast the kid was willing to speedrun to his own game over. Flashing a totally salty smile, the protagonist admitted his own life was literally the last currency he had in his inventory. Absolute silence filled the lobby while the legend scanned the insane bravery of its user. The kid's silent tears showed how stressed he was, that there was literally zero other strat to save the server. Sigh of tilt, the Spirit King roasted humanity for being totally trash NPCs. Back in the boss fight, the hero wobbles when he feels his rendered distance get insanely blurry. Noticing his hardware is redlining, he calculates he's got maybe 2 minutes tops before his system completely blue screens. Even with the timer ticking down, the kid claims those minutes are way more than enough to secure the win. He dumps all his leftover stats into a massive ball of spiritual light. A ruthless wave of wind deletes the temple floor with an absolutely busted critical hit. The kid screams at max volume, declaring that the cult leader's toxic dream gets permanently banned right now. But the extremist claps back with a totally arrogant smile, charging his gold magic and refusing to take the L. He screams that the rock beasts are just laying down the code for the true patch update. The terrifying glitch keeps torturing the locals with insane damage. The bad guy declares that the sacrifice pawns can just respawn until his holy event is 100% complete. Dozens more crystal beasts start booting up from the victims scattered around town. Furious at the extremist's totally garbage behavior, the MC trashes him in chat and drops his fatal ultimate. Church boss super fast pops a massive golden light shield. The barrier tanks the hurricane's damage, while the priest admits his mobs are trash, tier compared to the Spirit King. Leaking pure ego, the dude sarcastically points out that the kid's magic is just a free trial and the sub runs out super fast. The kid grinds his teeth, pushing the spell to max overclock, while the enemy asks whose HP is hitting 0 first. The two totally busted beams clash, triggering a massive nuke that makes the whole server lag. The brutal tornado keeps slicing the lobby and vaporizing the mobs trying to rush in. Running on fumes, the kid notices the beast wave is basically infinite, while his own timer is seconds away from 0. He stares down a massive rock mob that raises its arms ready to tap him into oblivion. Watching the whole stream from the high ground, Escott is totally full of himself, 100% convinced his cult just secured the victory royal. But the dude's smug face gets instantly wiped by total confusion when he realizes his macro glitched. An absolutely epic flashbang of light shatters the dark, totally freezing the chaos, crashing the church. The massive beast freezes completely bugged out, letting the hero casually walk right past its hitbox. A second later, the giant cursed statue literally just turns to dust, leaving the religious guy in the background absolutely mind blown. Super salty over the bug, Escott screams like a madman demanding to know why his mob wave just went AFK. Right then, heavy boots stomp on the rocks, and Edward's voice hypes up the mage for dropping a massive nuke on the zone. The kid turns his head, sweating with anxiety, struggling to believe who just spawned in. He finds the merc and Anux chilling right behind him, and gets a massive wave of relief seeing they didn't wipe. Reading the patch notes, the priest connects the dots and furiously realizes this absolute unit is the guy who griefed his entire run. Shaking with pure rage, the villain calls the merc a magic, less scrub, and screams asking what kind of hacks he just used. Keeping up the troll energy, the warrior smirks and says the religious dude yaps way too much, telling him to check his blind spot. Pointing right behind the enemy, the merc tells him to do a 180 ASAP. Looking exactly like a glitchy ghost, the out-of-towner spawns literally attached to the priest's back with a super sharp glare. The church boss freezes in pure terror on the spot, realizing he totally ignored the highest damage threat on the map. Giving 0 frames to block, the kid unleashes a totally broken magic blast at point-blank range, while the villain screams his fake username. Getting absolutely melted by the raw stats, Escott screams in pure salt, wanting to know why such an overpowered mage chose to carry regular humans. He tries to pull the lore card, bringing up all the years of toxic griefing and bans the casters had to tank. With absolutely 0 patience for the unhinged rant, the hero just charges his blast, totally ghosting the question of whether he wants to replay the toxic meta. A massive green tornado spawns from the floor, showing the absolute stat difference between the two accounts. Getting absolutely bodied by the hurricane, the extremist totally loses his controller and his defense buff shatters. The kid drops a roar of pure rage and sadness, overclocking the energy way past the red line. The tornado wrecks the zone with insane numbers, deleting any shield the bad guy tried to spam. Swallowed by the storm, the high priest gets violently launched, screaming in agony while eating the ban hammer. The busted weight of the ultimate shatters the rock floor, blasting a massive crater in the sanctuary. Totally wiped, Escott's avatar falls through the air straight into the broken rubble. Standing over the knocked-out boss, Simon coldly declares that this whole bloodbath was never some epic holy war to save the mages. Looking dead at the defeated villain's face, the MC roasts him, saying this entire crazy event was just a toxic grief fest on totally random NPCs. The server goes dead quiet, proving the fake admin's threat has officially been permanently banned. Chilling safely in the back, Edward and the kid watch the boss get clapped, totally shook by the insanely overpowered stats that just got dropped. But the hero's hardware finally hits a totally fatal crash, and he drops with 0 battery straight to the floor. The mage face plants hard on the ground, leaving a gnarly mess as his screen goes black. The lord jumps to the woods right outside town, where the vibes are still insanely heavy. A solo crystal beast is just standing there, right after it totally deleted a massive bear in the middle of the forest. The stone mob violently snaps its creepy face around, noticing a brand new player stealthing up on it. The creature winds up its sharp arm and violently dives at a mystery guy in a hood who just loaded in. With a totally cracked, near-invisible animation, the dude swings his sword, slicing right through the night breeze. The monster gets casually sliced cleanly in 2, hitting the game over screen in literally 1 frame. Checking out the mob's drop, the sword guy IDs the code and realizes this is one of the church's beta test assets. With absolutely 0 sympathy for his knocked-out teammate, the hood guy mumbles that he doesn't give a single crap what happened to the priest. Walking super chill toward the wrecked town's lobby, he decides to check out if his duo partner is still useful for the run. Dropping the hood to reveal his skin, the absolute boss Captain Clean Haste pops up, proving the real final boss just entered the chat. Stuck in an absolutely cursed nightmare, the hero's voice echoes telling the dude to stop right this second. The bad guy's shadow replies with zero chill, totally roasting the kid's useless and super pathetic revenge arcs. Stepping on a piece of crystal loot, Clean asks in a totally twisted way who gave the noob the admin rights to seek revenge. The kid sweats cold inside the cutscene, getting absolutely mentally crushed by the toxic trash talk. His brain gets totally griefed by the reveal that every single beast he farmed in the raid was a live player who did make it. The guilt totally takes over, seeing stone hands pointing at his avatar and mass, reporting him as a player killer. So suddenly jumps scares awake, screaming in pure panic and gasping for air, wrapped up in bandages on a bed. Spooked by the yell, Edward and Enoch stare at the kid, feeling a massive wave of relief seeing his account is back online. Crying happy tears, the girl jumps on the downed hero and screams his fake username. Clinging to the guy, she admits she thought his file was totally corrupted and cries that she didn't get to properly say GG. The absolute unit steps into frame and pulls the kid back by the collar, telling her to give him some space since the dude is still super low HP. Wiping her tears, the girl instantly gets hyped again and figures he must have zero stamina, sprinting off to craft him some food. Hands on his hips, the merc gets close and asks if the mage is feeling less glitchy, dropping that he's been AFK for one whole week. He chills the kid out, saying the inn is back online and the owner is just logging some rest hours to fully regen her health. Checking out the bandages all over his character model, Simon processes the update and is totally shocked he actually survived the raid. Trying to ping his magic, the MC panics noticing his spirit pet is totally ghosting his DMs. Skipping that bug for a sec, he grabs the dude's arm and asks in full panic if the fanatic managed to fast travel away. Giving his chest a light tap to chill him out, Edward promises they totally locked the bad guy inside his own dungeon. The warrior clears up that the server wanted to permanently ban Escott, but they voted to keep his account active to grind for a cure to the glitch. Hearing the lobbyist finally chill lifts a massive debuff off the mage, who just processes the lore without typing a word. Even with 1 HP, he struggles to roll out of bed, claiming he absolutely needs to confront the priest ASAP. The merc tries to block the play, warning his physical stats are trash right now, but the kid stubbornly insists he's got urgent quests to turn in. A little bit later, the squad takes a walk through the wrecked lanes under a super gray and depressing skybox. Checking out the griefed map, Simon sadly mentions the environment damage is way worse than his calculations. Dropping a massive laugh, the warrior tells him to chill out, promising that losing some base builds is literally nothing compared to losing player accounts. But the MC is still tanking massive guilt debuffs, 100% convinced he's the one who griefed the entire zone. Out of nowhere, the hero cancels his walking animation and his eyes pop, spotting a massive squad of NPCs right down the lane. One local points a finger at his avatar and pings the rest that this is the out of towner who spammed the wind ultimate in the square. The NPC walks up looking super serious, locking eyes with the mage and saying they have some heavy lore to discuss. Instantly, the nightmare floods the hero's RAM, terrified they're gonna mass report him for dealing damage to the crystal players. The fear debuff hits the kid super hard, making him sweat bullets thinking he's gonna get cancelled for what he did to the stone mobs. But the vibe totally flips when the dude grabs the mage's hands super warmly, spamming thanks for carrying the whole server. Super hyped, the local admits that if the kid hadn't pulled that absolutely boss move, the town would have never stopped Escott's toxic griefing. Totally muted, the kid tries to mumble an apology, while the merc and the girl watch the stream from the backline. The NPC keeps patiently explaining that the player base isn't totally noobish enough to believe in magical patch notes that unbrick stone humans. Getting how heavy it is, the civilian declares the mage literally just ended the laggy nightmare for the cursed players, saving everyone else's files. Hearing this absolute truth clears a massive debuff from the hero's soul, letting him finally drop his guard. With a super chill tone, the kid drops his most genuine GGs for the empathy of the grieving players. Watching the super wholesome cutscene, Edward smiles like a proud dad, and little Enoch is also totally vibing. The kid happily brags that she already totally predicted this epic good ending. Trolling, she roasts the merc, calling him a total noob for literally predicting the exact same thing earlier. Out of nowhere, the warrior's chill face totally vanishes when his radar pings a super sketchy aggro spike in the air. The Auv Towner also catches the new boss warning, locking his screen on a crazy dense energy spawn right nearby. Totally confused by the random lag spike, the girl says the hero's fake name without a clue of what's loading in. Blocking the kid with a totally hardcore glare, the mage commands her to absolutely never walk into that zone. Confused by the sudden panic mode, Enoch asks why they both just got max fear debuffs for literally zero reason. Staring dead at the church stairs, the MC figures out the nightmare event on this server is 100% not over yet. Behind the absolute unit backs up the theory, confirming there's another totally lethal boss roaming the map. Speedrunning the play, the warrior dashes through the wrecked halls, telling the hero to stay AFK. But the kid's brain overclocks and he guesses the dude is pushing for the jailed priest, totally suspecting a party link with Klein. Trusting his gut, the mage sprints down the dark stairs, spooked by the totally cursed chance of a rematch with his childhood boss. Hitting the dungeon, his eyes bug out when he walks right into an absolutely totally unscripted event. A super fast max damage sword slash clips through the shadows aiming right at their hitboxes. Using pure gamer reflexes, Edward pulls the kid to the side and they both dodge the instant kill hitbox by a literal pixel. Getting back into stance, the merc scans the dark while a voice drops a surprised emote that there are still active players down there. The mystery crasher IDs the MC and drops the hero's actual IRL username in the dark. Hearing the audio from his deleted save file makes the mage totally freeze, catching an absolute nightmare chill. Grinding his teeth with max rage, the kid locks onto the enemy and realizes exactly whose boss model just rendered. The edgy silhouette of Latin Heist pops out glowing with a red aura, holding a sword after totally griefing the jail. Confused by the insanely toxic vibes, the big guy asks if the out-of-towner actually has this crasher on his friend list. Without dropping target lock, the kid coldly replies he has way too much lore on this dude. The enemy casually struts in the dark, while the hero drops the bomb that Latin was literally his older brother back in the tutorial days. Flashing a totally psycho smile, the villain trolls his little bro's avatar and calls it wild that he actually dodged the massive server wipe back in the day. Absolutely fuming, Simon listens to his relative talk trash that, after so many players got wiped just to buff a totally useless noob, escaping with his file intact was literally the bare minimum.